It's all good though. Finding someone who's listened. This health system here in Hannah sucks balls. I know.
So what
We're
else
not
to
on
do?
camera.
No,
We just are now.
2.5 years of.
we are now, Sandra.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, I don't mind going. But screamed at the top of the rooftops, really.
Okay.
Well, I have to have my phone on today, so Costco's phone me ordered new fridges. They're supposed to deliver it in the morning. So they said they got a phone the day before.
I didn't see it on Highway 9, if that means anything for us.
I don't know who's bringing it, so
It'll be Highway
they,
9.
well, they said they phoned today and they'll come tomorrow morning. They phoned me the day before,
Okay,
and they said it's supposed to be delivered on the
So
18th.
so just minor stuff?
So I don't know what time it
He
is.
had his
Huh?
stomach
oh,
removed,
that's
his
cool.
gallbladder removed. No, his gallbladder. A piece of his esophagus.
Oh, you're a
And he's
star.
flat. Because every time he bent over, his stomach.
I'm not
I'm not,
you
but I'm not a
The
star.
doctor's incredible, but that was 9 doctors, 3 hospitals. No one, because of mental illness, they wouldn't go past that.
So the Drumheller.
Once they did, they went, "Oh, you're dying." Anyways,
Really?
Yeah.
he went back to
On the
hospital.
news,
He's
you know,
having
they couldn't,
trouble passing
there were no
anything.
more members.
And his surgeon called. I heard you're having trouble. Get your ass back in here right now.
It's,
Service clubs are a really tough thing these days.
They are.
This morning,
My kids'
his doctor's
generation are
incredible.
not interested in
He
service
found the
clubs.
doctor in Northwest
That's what it
Calgary.
said.
Doesn't mean a
There's
thing
no
to them.
doctor
They had the
here from Hellerstedt.
exalt ruler on
Touch
their
him because
schrock
his
was her
mental
name.
illness.
She said
And
that
they assume that's what was
they
wrong.
just can't reproduce these kids.
Almost
They
killed him.
don't care.
It turns out he's really, really,
So they couldn't
truly
make it go.
mental illness incredible.
Too bad.
Over everything.
Well,
I have
Kim,
a
I got a
pimple.
paper
It's
there for
disease.
you.
So.
Okay.
when you're
Yeah,
doing-
Just give it to Winona.
It's incredible.
To look past
He's
that.
he's already doing amazing. It's made such a difference.
no, more and more, it's harder and harder to recruit and yeah, it's just.
Well, it's the same thing in our community.
Yeah, no, it's, when I say that, it's
That's
it's
a
a
killer.
countrywide
Lions, kinsmen, you know, and
service clubs.
a lot of them are just hanging on by the skin of their teeth.
Well, they're doing okay, but that's what Brass said, Drumheller folded there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. It's just one of the mornings. Call to order at 8:32.
We're down to 2,400. Our population dropped another 6.4.
My computer laptop, for whatever reason, did not get my email with the document for today. Well, can you send it to DannyPineridge@gmail.com, please?
Are you hooked up to the network here?
I should be, yep.
No, I mean, you're not.
Yes. she is.
Oh, this is your agenda.
Yeah,
Can you resend the package to, you want it at your Pine Ridge?
I do DannyPineridge@gmail.com. Oh, there we go.
Oh, you got it now?
I don't know, just 1 second.
Okay.
Knew I should have looked at this last night when I was at home. I looked at it shop yesterday.
What house did that cop McPhail from, you know?
I would,
Yeah.
I got it.
What happened?
Corner of 3rd and, 4-way stop on 3rd and 7th. Kitty corner to Brian Becky.
Oh, okay.
met the new doctor's husband.
Oh, okay.
Okay, send, hopefully it comes.
They got mattress show up at the shop. It's funny, we're trying to find out, of course, don't have no idea who it is or anything, and then this little boy. He's in Chicago.
Or no, I sent it to,
No, Danny Pine Ridge.
oh,
at gmail.com.
no, I didn't send it. It's up on the screen.
Yeah, I can call for adoption of the agenda. Sandra, sorry, B. Counselor Bowden.
Danny Kleinridge.
Gmail.com. Any delegations? Thank you.
No, well, we need to do all in favor, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
Okay, no
yeah,
no
I'm
delegations.
pausing here, buddy. I'm
Okay.
trying to.
Well, my report's first, and I can kill some
Okay,
time
yeah,
for you.
So exactly. So adoption of the agenda,
Yeah.
all in favor? Carried.
Who-
Sandra B. Counselor Ward. Cal's not with us today?
Kyle's on vacation.
Okay.
And we still have quorum, so.
I
Kyle's
seen
on
that. Yeah, I
vacation.
seen that, sorry, I did.
Yeah, and then Fred just texted this morning that he's at a doctor's appointment, so he doesn't think he'll be here till 9:30 or so.
And that's, yeah. Okay. How about everybody?
Okay, just, sorry I didn't get a chance to put anything down. I put a written copy down in front of you today, and I'll go through it. Just want to talk a little bit, first off, about the power outage last night. So those of you who were unaffected, were you off, Councilor?
Yeah, I think I went to bed about 10:30 and it was still on.
Yeah, so where I'm at on 7th, they've been having some issues with, because I know when I was in Mexico, it was out one day. It was just a very small area, kind of the north side of the block on 200 block and a little bit of James Crescent. Then would have been Monday night or Tuesday morning at 5 a.m, power went out. Was out for about an hour. So I talked to ATCO and they got it going and I said, do you know what was wrong? Nope. But it was back on. So it was on all day Tuesday, I guess. I got home about 7 last night from work and it was off. And my block had been off since 6.
Okay.
So, and it was just kind of, again, that small area until about 8:30. And talking with David Mole, he was in contact with ATCO. They were trying to make a fix somewhere behind my house,
At the lodge, actually. I got an email from the lodge.
but they weren't doing the fix there. They were doing a planned something
A
there
planned,
yesterday.
oh, so this had nothing to do?
No.
I kept thinking, all
No,
those people
that had
because of the
nothing to
power
do-
pole, okay.
Well, they have it back up.
So
They do,
then,
they do.
so
But they
then,
still notified us.
I guess they went to fix the problem and couldn't fix it without shutting down more of the town. So that's why about 8:30-ish, 8:45, another section of town went down. And they had said they would be up and running 10-ish, which turned into 11, which then turned into 1. So I used myself as an example, being the house that would have been out earliest, and I keep my house cold during the day. It would have been 15 when the power went out in my house. So I was at home. Was I cold? If I wasn't under a blanket, I was cold, but I just went under my bed under blankets and I was fine. I was perfectly warm. There was chatter on Facebook from one resident in town who felt the town should have opened up a spot for people to get warm. David and I talked about midnight and I said, David, I don't think anybody's going to go. I think people who are at home are in their beds or in their blankets. They're warm. I said, if their house is cold and they're worried about their water pipes, there's nothing going to a warm place will do. So David said, well, I'll monitor it. He was in contact with ATCO. They were waiting for a part because they got the piece fixed, then they couldn't get the part they shut down, they couldn't get it to fire back up from the substation by the golf course. So they, and again, they timed out, their crew timed out, so they had a crew from Drum come up and they brought a switch or something that they thought they needed. And they weren't sure if that was gonna fix the problem. And if they couldn't fix the problem with that switch, they were going to have to shut the whole town down. And part of the rural area and basically then backfeed it through another substation. But fortunately, the fix at one worked, and about 10 to 1 power came on, and my house was at 10 degrees at 1 o'clock when the power came on. So it wasn't, my pipes weren't gonna freeze, anything like that. So if people ask you why we did talk about it, we did consider it. David was prepared to originally open up the community center, but then he said if they shut down the power for the whole town, it would be out. So we would move to, so he was gonna open the fire. It has a generator, it would have been up and running. So if you get any feedback, why we didn't, power's a strange animal because it's never out generally it's not out for a long period of time. And then, okay, 10, so you kind of count, okay, and then it keeps going. When do you make
When you
that?
pull the
When you pull the
parachute.
And like I said, at that type, I think most people were in their bed, in their blankets, and were warm. So that's, if you get any feedback on that, we were in touch with ATCO. We knew what was going on. We were prepared to move forward. We just didn't feel that it would be necessary yet at that point in time. So
No, I called my son, same thing. They were out at, I think Kyle said 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I called them at 1 because, well, everybody's in full panic mode. And I said, you're more than welcome to come to our place. I mean, they've got the kids and whatnot. Kyle said, it's just another blanket on the bed, Dad.
Yeah.
I said, well, I'm just saying that we have power, so, yeah.
yeah, no, and that's what I put another blanket or two on bed, and I was in bed, and I was toasty warm. I was bored out of my mind, but
Please don't explain any of that.
toasty warm. So
I got an email the other day. It's probably because I'm like the chair of Big Country Waste or whatever. And it was to do with this green energy shit stuff they're doing that they're getting rid of. And these transformer poles, the transformers on the poles in, that was the date on that thing, end of 2024 or 25. Those things are gonna be outlawed. I don't know how they're ever gonna replace them. Like, there was numerous things. There was 4 or 5 things that they showed on there. And I'll send the.
no, I got a copy of that.
Did you get a copy
I'm
of
trying to
that?
remember the right term.
It
They're
was
trying to
something.
cut out a certain
Probably the creosote and
chemical. No, it's not creosote. It's
No. Some kind of acid thing, wasn't
even
it?
electronic, even ballasts for
Yeah, ballast,
fluorescent
lights was one.
would be stuff that if it's over a certain size, it has a certain amount of some chemical or
PCB
some
or-
PCBs in it. Yeah, that's the word I was trying to
I
find.
know.
What was the date on it? Was
25.
25, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember there was ballast, the transformers on. There was 4 of the things shown,
Yeah,
wasn't there?
there was
I can't remember the other ones, but
yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting. I thought, well, I would forward on to Sean to make sure he knew about it.
Yeah, it's 2025,
If they outlaw, that's gonna wind up in the landfills.
but that's a PCB, yeah, it's a PCB
You know,
thing, percentage
Gonna
of.
have to set up a spot probably at the
So
landfill.
that's where we're at on the power outage. If anybody has any questions, fire away. Like I said, I used myself as an example. I was out, one of the earliest ones out at 6, and it wasn't unbearable.
the only concern I think, Mr. Neal, has to do with the amount of homes in town that were built during the war and are not as energy efficient as a newer home. And I know some people that were in the negatives, -4, -5 in
Oh,
their
really?
home. And I think they were concerned about pipes. Communication from the town, I think would have helped last night at some level. Everyone has on their phone. So an update through the phone
The
system.
challenge is though, our update would only be what ATCO's providing.
They
as an
already
update,
provided.
It's still
which they were
something.
providing.
It's saying, we as a town care about our residents. There were 400 or 500 people out. Let them know, that's a quarter of the town. We're out just to let them know, I think would have potentially alleviated some of the concerns people had. Because
Yes.
not all homes were still 9 or 10 degrees.
Well, and again, I used mine as an example. Mine is a 1968 home, so it's not a newer home. I kind of thought it's kind of middle of the road.
Yeah.
And like I said,
Emergency numbers on our phone system.
if anybody would have called,
Here, They
yeah.
would be able to get a hold of somebody into your administration if there was a concern.
Yeah, we didn't put
I
anything
don't think
out.
they knew that.
Council Murphy and part and parcel was,
It's not our.
we were getting our info from ATCO and ATCO, I know I was following on Facebook, ATCO had, and people had screenshots of what ATCO had put out in
Yeah.
terms of what they were gonna do. So we would have been reiterating the same thing for the most part, so.
And even if the town puts something on there, you're gonna find, there's gonna be one or two that's gonna bitch about it anyway. They're
Oh,
gonna
trust
say,
me,
I
know
didn't
all
get it.
about that.
I
So,
didn't get it. You
Yeah,
know
I
they
just
will.
wanted to,
So-
your point is well received. We could have maybe, it's one of those, okay, well, 10 o'clock, okay, that's not too bad, you know. But it's one of those that keeps stretching and stretching and extending, and when do you pull the pin
Yeah.
to make a decision, so.
And I just want to comment that according to the training that I've done for being the public information officer during an event, that we did everything that we should have done from a municipal standpoint, probably above and beyond, because it wasn't our.
Wasn't
the
our,
outreach wasn't our crisis, the
Ah,
crisis
yes.
would have been in residents.
I don't think it's ever our crisis, whether it's Mother
Sometimes.
Nature or a truck coming into town that blows up, it's never our crisis. But when there's 400 residents without power, some of them are scared to death that their fish are gonna die or the plant, whatever their issue is, some level of communication would alleviate whether or not people still bitch, they might. But if we can alleviate some of that, we're just more respected by the residents, that's all. Just,
yeah, no, I
I
don't,
think that wouldn't be a bad thing, it's
like I
never a bad
said,
thing to do.
we would have been reiterating what
Yeah.
most people were following on bulletin board anyways.
Well, and maybe, maybe to reinforce that as well is, maybe on the next newsletter, as, if you're in a power outage, remind,
Of what to do.
yeah, what to do. Call ATCO or call the town number for a message for somebody to get, to answer any questions they have or something. It could be, another source that they could use, or it just
Yeah.
could be as a reminder.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had outages for a
We
long
can add to our
time.
letter. That's easy.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt. It certainly
It
wouldn't.
wouldn't hurt, yeah, I agree. It's always nice to be over and above then.
Yeah. Than barely making the minimum.
So I just wanted to mention that's what the process was
Thank
last
you.
night,
Thank
so.
Didn't affect our house, and we had the fireplace going. We had the fireplace going, and so I was.
I didn't know there was a
nice.
power outage because
I'm on.
it stopped at the senior circle.
on,
We're in the parking lot of the senior
so mine
circle.
wasn't out.
So I didn't even know there was a power outage and then got
And actually,
bombarded
so I
with
thought hers
messages this
was out.
morning. So
Cause I know they're on a different line, but Kim said, no, they weren't out.
Okay.
Mine never went out,
no,
No.
so.
Okay, now I'll just go through my report. So demolition project, I think not too much has changed. The fencing is up, the hole is gone. Still waiting for the final invoices from Big Country Waste and Pacific Blasting. Census info, I don't know if council is aware of this. They haven't really splashed it too much, but they did release their 2021 census information. So I did pull it up, and according to the 2021 census, our population has dropped 6.4% to 2394 from 2559 in 2016. So just for your info.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
No, and it's unfortunately, that's been the trend. About 1% a year type thing has been the trend. It's interesting. I think we've got as many houses occupied as we normally would. I don't think we have houses that aren't occupied any more than we normally do. It's just a different demographic with less people living in those houses, so. But just-
I take that number to Lori Palmer and show it to her.
Oh,
I
okay.
told her that's why our population's shrinking. She keeps putting them in the ground on us.
So anyways, just wanted you to be aware that that's out. I did have a chance yesterday to meet the new staff sergeant. So Robert Wellsman is his name. He is planning to be in Hannah by April 1st. His wife is a veterinarian, and he has 2 children, age 6 and 8. They will be moving here in July after school is out, and they're excited about the move and looking forward to it. They had a tour of the school on Friday, and they're quite impressed with the school, and sounds like his boy's a hockey player and is quite excited that the school had a hockey program for elementary age kids, and so they're looking forward to moving in. He's looking for, they did look, primarily we're looking for an acreage. They do have horses, so he's gonna be trying to find a place to board a few horses, but he said there's not a ton on the market right now, and he said a couple of properties that they have been looking at that have been on the market for quite some time sold just before they got into them and started looking. So I know we've had 3 newer houses sell in the last week, so yeah, so he's looking at the house on the corner of 3rd and 7th, so he's excited to be here. So he will come to the council meeting once he gets settled in here and ready to roll. So probably the April one if he's here for April 1st. So up until then, we'll have Ramo Blue will still be in charge. So provincial budget, just letting you know if you're not aware that it will be announced tomorrow. I don't anticipate any surprises municipally. They previously provided estimates on our MSI capital and MSI operating. So I don't anticipate there's going to be any changes there, but we'll monitor it and see how things are. I think it's going to be a good budget for the province in terms of having some resource dollars available for them to utilize that haven't been there for the last few years. So it'll certainly make it look better anyways.
Apparently this morning they announced that they're up in the financing from 15 to 30% on private clinics doing operations and things.
Oh,
They're gonna
yeah, that's
put a
one
lot
of
more
the,
money into
that's
that.
one of the things in the
Yeah.
town speech was they're gonna increase the number of private surgeries from 15 to 30%. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think people that are waiting for surgeries care if it's private or public, they just want to get it done.
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
If they
for sure.
survive. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not a lot of them have. Some have died waiting.
oh, no kidding.
so that's tomorrow. Staffing updates, just so you're aware, we did advertise for the municipal secretary position. Closed last week on the 14th. We did have 25 applications, so had a good number of applications. Had some good ones, some people with some good experience. So we're hoping, we have shortlisted and we're hoping to set the interviews next week. This week, with it being a short week and it's accounts payable week and payroll week, just wasn't a good week to take that time. So hopefully we'll be able to interview early next week. Bobby Buckwitz, who was the full-time staff at Centennial Place, has resigned. She just, it was just too much for her in terms of her kids and running the farm and living outside and coming in and out. It just, she felt she couldn't do it. It wasn't working for her. Fortunately, we have several casual staff who can pick up the shifts. We're fortunate right now. I think we've got 3 younger university age people who aren't away at school, who are able to pick up the Monday to Friday day shift is where we have our biggest challenge. And they're able to pick those up. And we have Melissa Ray started with us probably a couple of months ago, and of course, she's an adult, not any commitments, so she's picked up a lot of those shifts and picked up some of the responsibility there. So we're not in a rush to fill it full-time at this point, but I think we've got enough group of casual staff to keep it operating as we required.
There's no less a local girl.
Yep,
Yeah.
lives up by me, Darby Raceway.
Yeah, no,
Darby's mom worked at the
Farmer's
post
market.
office for years.
no. Whoa. okay.
Dream,
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, I had Darby.
Yeah, Green, that's right, okay. I was
Yeah,
trying
they
to
live
figure
up
out where I
beside
knew the
me, just
name.
around the corner, so.
I don't know Melissa well. I
She
know
actually does the farmer's.
She does the
market as well.
farmer's
She's-
market. and-
Awesome human.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
very good
met with
person.
her before I went on holidays, just to, because she has indicated she would like to, she'd be interested in the full-time position. So I said to her, let's just see how things work out. You're fairly new here. Things work out well. That might be an ability to transition into that. So she was good with that and had a good sit down with her, and that's moving forward. So the next one on your list, just a heads up. So I've been
No.
talking,
No,
I've been talking with Lindsay Bond, and one of her children must be part of this project-based learning group. They were intended to come to the council meeting in February, but they had some kids off sick. This week, they're off at school's off. So I'm planning to get them there March 8th, but they did send me a letter last week. And their project-based learning group would like to raise 30 chickens for slaughter. So they're basically asking permission to do that. It is against our animal control bylaw, it's against our land use bylaw. But they want to start in April and slaughter them in June. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up to think about it. We have talked about, and they kind of surprised me with the slaughter part. We have had discussions 3 or 4 years ago on council about
Chickens for eggs.
chickens with eggs and laying hens and stuff like that. And would we change the bylaw to go down there? And we did some research. Council today basically said it was close to an election. We're not going to touch this one. And then the new council, which would have been the term last time, wasn't raised as an issue, never brought back to our table again. So I kind of thought that was where they were going when I initially talked to them. But so, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Certainly you want to help the children. You want to help them move forward. You just have to, I guess, put yourself in the place of, if you're a resident in that area, are you going to have any concerns? 30 hens isn't a ton. So my thought is, if council is wanting to move forward, we won't have enough time to do it, amend the bylaws
I was gonna say, do it
and go
properly.
through that to get, but, we probably could, if council wanted to pass a resolution to give them a special exemption or permission for a pilot project to try this. The only challenge is you just don't, timing wise, you just don't get the ability to find out, do any public engagement with residents.
I wonder, the fact that it's for educational purposes, could that be considered an engage or an exception or an amendment to the bylaw? to
Well,
consider
You'd have
that?
to, you'd have to amend the bylaw to amend the bylaw,
Mhm.
not just for that. But I think we could,
We could put an
for a
exception
one-time
in.
one, we could, if council chose to, could make a decision to grant them permission to do it this time as a pilot
I was
project,
gonna say, you can always,
that type of thing. If that's the way council wants to go. If council doesn't want to, council makes the decision to say, sorry, no, we're not gonna grant that for these
Still-
reasons.
even granting them a special thing is still gonna open up a bad can of worms. Remember the last time it was Dr. Lombard that wanted them so they could raise
Well,
quail is what it was. I said, well, why don't you put them on your hanger at the airport and don't say nothing, we don't care. But that's where it came from the first time. Like the last time when we faced it, there was all kinds of opinions around this town about it.
This is a, yeah, this is a
Guys wanted
different
it, some
situation
didn't.
than that,
Yeah.
but it is, the other thing I look at it is it is a short period of time.
Well, it's a short period of time, might be a good experiment, or as you
Yeah.
say, you know, just to give it a whirl and if the kids are gonna get something that's actually practical out of it, I think it's a great idea.
Oh, I
And
think it's a good
it's
idea.
a 3-month probationary trial.
Yeah.
If it
If
blows
it's-
up around us, then,
We know.
okay, we tried it, it
Yeah.
didn't work.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up versus getting it
Blindsided.
a few days before, and this gives you a little more time to think about it if you want to talk to some people or.
Well, and the school's fairly, for lack of a
Large.
better word, large and
Yeah.
remote for,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like it's your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
so.
Well, there is actually.
Yeah, I know,
There's
but
some
they,
close proximity.
Yeah, but they
of some
can-
People that are highly engaged with that property
Yeah.
and what goes on there. There are.
Yeah,
very
but they're-
I
aware.
wonder where they would put them, like,
Yeah, that would be
That's-
the other key.
that's one of my
And then
questions.
behind their
yeah.
concession.
they'd have to have it in. Like then they have to have security cameras and the.
Well, that's their
That's
their
thing,
call,
yeah.
and if something happens to their animals, whether somebody vandalizes them, steals them, another animal gets in there and gets after them, that's up to them to, it's part of learning how to do business and how to run your business, right? So,
Well, I gotta say, there's a couple things that concern me. First of all, the 4-H club does this already. So these children want to learn how to raise animals for slaughter during 4-H. That's certainly a thing. Why are they just growing plants? They're actually growing animals. Now, I'm presuming they're not going to slaughter the animals themselves.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Yes.
kids aren't, they're gonna be sent to I think a Hutterite colony
Probably a hundred
to,
probably.
to do that.
Process.
finish it,
Mr.
process.
CAO, just for clarification around that then, Sandra,
Mhm.
the 4-H do it not on town property though.
That's correct.
So it is on private property outside the limits and the jurisdictions and the bylaws of the town of Hammond. Is that not correct?
No, that's not my concern, is they're duplicating a service that's already available. Children, these children could join 4-H and learn how to raise animals.
Okay, I understand.
But there are no programs for children to learn how to plant different kinds of plants, and which could alleviate some of the concerns of the residents. But that's a lot of chickens. We're not talking about 2 or 3.
So Sandra, when they started the community garden, I became the chairman of it. Me and Dawn Campbell started it, and it was a thing that was started through the school.
Yes.
The school kids through their, I forget the name of the program. They were the ones that pushed to get that garden going.
It's
And
fantastic.
they were supposed to be there to come there and learn how to plant and everything.
And
They
it dropped, right?
really never, they showed up one time
Yeah.
and then we had never seen them again.
Right.
And that was 10 years ago, so. And they haven't come back to
Yeah.
do
And
anything
yet
with
the
it.
community still uses it.
Well, the community, yeah,
Beautiful,
because we keep renting it out and
Yeah, it's
like
great.
the other day I got a call from the lady in mental health and they want a couple of plots again because she brings her clients out and they work on it. They had done that a few years back and they were really excited about it and did a great job. In fact, the lady that ran it then was a police officer's wife and she became the gardener of the year for
Nice.
what she did with them. Like,
So anyways,
So
Mr.
that's
Mayor,
my
just
for
wanted to give you a heads
information,
up.
yeah, it's for information. I'll take it, think about it,
Yeah.
talk to your
Gives you a little more time to think about it.
constituents that
I
are
know it's
for
not
and
a,
against, and yeah.
it's not a, there is definitely probably some controversy around the decision, so I just wanted to give you a little more time to think about it, and I will ask the students to come and present, which was part of the learning experience. And part of the, if you have questions, you can certainly pose those questions to the kids, so.
well, the way
I think
you
that
said
if
it, the special permit thing, that's the only way I can see how you do it, but we're
Yeah.
gonna, if we do it, there's gonna be some
Well, I think
phone calls
a
made. to
pilot
us.
project would be the proper term, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then somebody can say, well, we told you it wouldn't work. And
Well, I think if they, indicates that they were plan to raise them in a facility on property, the school property. I guess the only concern is if they're inside all the time, really, are they really gonna have that much impact on the residents? It's different if they're free range chickens and are outside in a penned area that they will hear a lot of noise and that sort of thing. So.
Well, that's a question we can
Yeah,
ask.
and I don't know the
Yeah.
specifics of the facility. I
Well, they
just
don't-
know that it's gonna be in behind the concession area.
Yeah, they won't be inside the building,
No,
no.
No, I realize that, but within a facility on their property, so it's not within the school, but I imagine a shed that's being
Yeah.
converted into a chicken barn or chicken coop.
Like I said, that's something we can ask when they come and present it. If they come.
Mr. Mayor, I actually have a question. Excuse me. Mr. Neal, then, I'm just curious, I maybe just need some footwork too. So can we have a pilot project go forward by motion that is in violation of a bylaw?
it's not proper practice. Don't get me wrong, it's not proper practice, but timing wise, it certainly is the only option that will work if you want them to be able to move forward and do something this year.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Because bylaws are in place for a
Proper,
reason.
Yeah.
And
proper way
protocols
would
in
be
place, so I'm
to
just curious how
have
that
the
works.
bylaws,
That's good.
have them amended and go through that time period to public engagement to do that. So that's definitely, the way we're doing it would be a sideways, side door way to do it, so.
Thank you.
So are they
Well, I
also
thought
putting
maybe
this
that
out on
was-
social media? I haven't seen.
I haven't seen anything on social media, and I don't know if they're prepared
We've
to,
never done it.
I don't know if they're
I
prepared
haven't
to,
seen anything,
No,
but I'm
it was
just,
for.
okay.
because they don't have permission.
Oh, and do you know the age of the students? What grade?
But they
I'm
put it down as
thinking
chickens.
Lindsay's kids.
I'm
would be
thinking
And then we said, well,
elementary.
what's next?
Late
Then it's
elementary?
geese,
Late
everything else.
elementary.
I was gonna say be late elementary.
So I would imagine they've got parents that are gonna oversee it so that
Oh,
if the kids don't kick in and do their stuff, somebody else is gonna be looking after them.
So just
Anyways.
food for thought.
Yeah.
Wanted to give you a little more time on that because it's something a little unusual that doesn't necessarily come across our desk
Soon.
regularly.
Well, the best thing is make it public and
Yeah.
listen to the feedback.
Oh,
We've
you-
got it. We've got
Yeah.
time.
We'll
Yeah,
get
you have to
feedback.
advertise.
Oh, no, we will, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, we can make it public now and have the feedback going forward, right?
Yeah.
Instead of doing it and then getting the feedback, or not.
And just finally, just a reminder, our tour on Saturday,
Mhm.
9 a.m.
At the arena.
We'll start at the arena. And hopefully we can cover the arena, pool, curling rink, community center, and Stanley Place in the morning, so. And any questions from council, I'm prepared to answer.
Hearing none. Do you need a motion
No.
for that? Kim?
No.
Okay, council on our area of expenses.
So I'm not sure where we want to start with this, Mr. Mayor. We have put together a bit of a package. I know there's been some questions from council members in terms of who gets paid for what, who pays them, all of those types of things. One of the biggest differences when we look through the packages, I don't think we've ever had a policy per se. We've had guidelines that had been adopted and approved by previous councils in terms of how to move forward. They originally, and it was several years ago, I think councilors got paid per meeting. So whatever committee they were on, whatever council meeting they got paid per meeting. But I think both administratively and councilors felt that that was onerous because they were always having to turn in papers. I was at this meeting, I was at this meeting. We had to process them, pay them. So a number of years ago, the council today said, let's make a monthly honorarium And that honorary will cover, basically, I think the intent was local, in-town groups and committees. That's part of, if you're on one of those and you have a meeting, it's part of your honorary and you move forward. There are groups that that we belong to that make payment on their own directly to the counselor, and the guidelines always said that if they are paid by another group, they receive that money. So we tried to put down kind of where we're at. And we also put down, and I want to double check with council that we have this 100% right. So our understanding that Acadia Foundation, and I'll look at Councilor Murphy, there is a per diem for meetings and there is travel expenses paid
Absolutely,
directly to you from Acadia Foundation.
correct.
Big Country Waste, I believe, is the same. Councilor Campion, you'll get a per diem and travel directly from Big Country Waste.
Yeah.
Community Futures, I wasn't sure, and I'll look at Councilor Bowden and Councilor Warwick.
I never received anything
So there was
except
no-
mileage,
Okay, so you received some sort of travel,
just the reimbursement for the mileage.
okay.
Yeah.
And
And
That's a
if-
full day, wherever you go, right?
Usually, yeah, you
Yeah.
travel.
That's a full day.
Yeah, and so I was not aware of the daily.
Is that the one you go to Madison?
No, that's PEP.
so that's
Oh,
one
that's
that
good.
we
Yeah, right.
need to decide, is that one that council should be paying a per diem? It's outside the monthly honorary,
Correct.
council should be paying a per diem, and if you're getting travel from, because I'm assuming travel, you get so much per kilometer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which would be what I'm assuming you would get for
That's
the other
correct.
one. So from what I understand, then Community Futures, the travel is covered by the board.
Yes,
It's just that there's no per diem and whether we want to have that included as a per
well,
diem.
a person could apply for, like, fill out that document you've got for out of town.
Yeah.
If you are attending any meeting or any training, they cover the hotel expenses as well as travel again. Some of the conferences and training and that sort of thing were in Saskatoon. So they did pay for accommodation.
So we'll have to get her, how we want to deal with that, whether we just simply say the town will provide a per diem or it's part of the honorary. That's the decision that has to be made.
Well, I think the town should be giving them a per diem on that, like, you look at the medical thing. Councilor Crowe gets a per diem from the medical board.
Yeah, but he's in town and it's $100. Every meeting is $100.
Where's your community?
Okay,
service?
well, let's just deal
Let's
with
just
the
keep going through the-
community
let's
futures
go
one.
through the-
Where's the
Community
future?
futures one is the third one on the list.
It's in Kindersley.
Interstate?
So
I personally agree that any meetings, there's got to be an equilibrium between counselors because we all have a different set of groups. So if you're driving all the way to Kindersley, you are gone for a minimum
For
of
a full
8
day.
hours.
Yeah.
You've got risk of the travel. You're away from access to things that people who don't have to travel don't have that concern. They can still
So-
work.
I guess what we'll need then, do we do this all at once or do we do it?
no, I
as-
think we'll do
I
it,
think we should
do
go.
it at the end, just consensus,
okay.
consensus is though that town.
Consensus, there should be an honorarium,
Okay,
Absolutely.
or pretty,
Yeah.
sorry.
so Community Services Board, because it's, and this is my interpretation of the previous policy or previous guidelines is because it's a local committee, local board, it's, if you're on that board, that's part of your honorary.
Yeah.
Even if they meet once a month for 2 hours or 3 hours, it's part of your honorary and it's in town, the meetings are in town.
Mr. Neal, just to add to all of this, we're going through this one by one, but I think the overarching thing here that I am seeing here is equity between the boards you sit on.
Yes.
I mean, some are getting paid, some are not. And this is where I'm seeing some differentials between. So you have one counselor that sits on 4 or 5 different committees and doesn't get any compensation for any of those committees with the time given. The other counselors get the time, their time paid for. So where is the equity in this?
I
Are we
agree.
dispersing these committees or boards that we're appointed to equally and fairly? I guess that's my question.
Can I just
No.
interject in here, as far as the medical clinic, it's not just the town that sits on that board, it's also, there's a special areas representative, and there is Starlight.
Starlight.
Almost every board is
Representatives
like that.
well,
They've got a
yeah.
group of different people.
Yeah, so it's not just, whereas the community services board, it is just within town.
So let's finish going through each one of these. I don't disagree with Councillor Warwick, and that's one of the challenges, and Mayor Potaschuk and I have talked about it, is trying to find a balance, and even for him, knowing who's paid, who's not paid, and trying to create an equilibrium there. We didn't have a lot of this information. It's never been an issue with any previous councils. We've moved forward and operated this way for at least 10 years.
Well, when we
We're
did these,
gonna fix it.
okay, when we did
They've
these,
never been adjusted in the 11 years I've been on there. They've been the same for.
Yeah.
Ever since.
okay, when we did these appointments, I reached out to each and every counselor and I asked for your top 3 that you'd like to sit on. And we did the best to accommodate those to the, as much as we could. So if it was an issue, it would have been nice to have brought it forward then. So let's move along.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to say at that time, we did not have full understanding. And I think that's what's come to this is why this has come to the table. I have reached out to previous counselors, and honestly, some of them didn't even have full understanding of who got paid and who didn't get paid.
Okay,
And including my husband, who was the previous mayor, did not have a full understanding of all of it either. So I think for clarity, on a go-forward basis for the future, I think it's in our best interest to clarify, those particulars on the committees that we're sitting on.
that's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, Fred and Frida Gooder Bursary, it's been considered included. It is generally 1 or 2 short meetings in a year. So it's not a big time commitment. They basically will review the applications for the scholarship, make a decision. So a couple quick meetings max in a year. Hannon District Chamber of Commerce, again, we've considered that included. It's local, it's in town, and we have not compensated any previous counselors for their attendance to that meeting. It's been part of the monthly honorarium.
And how often does that take place? Those
Monthly, probably?
Monthly, and then a couple of times a month, or a couple of times we have multiple, depending upon the committees and so on and so forth.
Hannon District Medical Corporation, I wasn't sure, but there is a per diem that's provided by the board. And obviously, there's no travel because it's in Hannon. Golf and Country Club.
Sorry, how often do those meetings happen? Is that once a month? Once a
No,
month too?
it's quarterly, I believe, yeah. So it's, sometimes it's on an as-need basis if they're looking at. doctors.
Yeah, and that's part of the trouble is boards will have potentially a set schedule, but if something comes up where they need to meet more, we don't generally know that, so. Golf and Country Club, again, local. It's been considered part of the included honorarium. Mayor Potaschuk would know from his volunteer commitment there. Well, I don't know if it's monthly on average.
Probably 8 meetings a year.
Year. Okay.
This year they may have a little more with some of the new staff that they're bringing on board, depending upon if we're involved in that, which I don't think we are actually.
Okay, so we've considered that included as part of the honorarium. Hannon and Bloom, which we're not operating this year, would be considered included as part of your honorarium. The Learning Center, again, local board, included in your honorarium. Library Board, local board, included in your honorarium. The Waukee Student Exchange Committee, again, if we have a program, there's a couple of meetings. If we don't have a program, there is no meetings, but it would be considered included. Harvest Sky, because the meetings are local,
Excuse
have
me,
been considered included as part of your honorarium.
I'm sorry. The Waukee, their meetings were, like, I think there was one in Stony and everything
Oh, the
else.
Alberta, Japan, yeah.
Yeah, so that, as far as just, I guess that's different. And then that situation, I believe they paid the mileage,
Yeah.
I think. for that particular.
Yeah. So Harvest Sky, again, I'm not sure if they meet every couple months, I think.
I think we've met twice.
So again, generally in town. So we've had that as, and always has been included as part of it. Henry Kruger, board per diem. And if there is travel, it's paid by the board.
Our meetings in Youngstown.
Okay. But you were meeting in Hannah for,
Well, we met there, but we got, the biggest problem is there, we have a guy from Acadia Valley and Wayne, and it's a long travel for them for a 45-minute meeting. Because sometimes that's what it is.
the Marigold Library Systems Board, Council
And we're
Murphy,
fine
that
Monday.
one's, we never had any information on.
Okay, the Marigold only covers my travel
Okay,
to the meeting. That's it. And it's 3 to 5 hours
yeah.
per meeting.
And where are those meetings?
They, because they vary. We've had a couple that were Zoom or else in-house in Strathmore.
Well, that Zoom's a whole other issue we need to talk about at the end of the meeting, so, but this one, you're generally traveling out of town
That's
and you're
correct.
spending time, so would that be considered the same as Community Futures, that it should be a per diem? Is that the consensus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it falls within the mandates listed on here, in town, out of town.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what's been indicated.
Municipal Planning Commission, that's included. And it's a hit and miss,
Yeah.
whether they're required. Generally, on average, probably 4 to 6 times a year, and they're generally, the meetings are less than an hour. So we've considered that included. Palliser Economic Partnership, the per diem is paid by the town. Mileage is paid by the town. Palliser Regional,
That's the one you missed, Matt.
well, it moves around, but
Yeah.
It's in Bow Island on Friday.
This- yeah.
I don't know where Bow Island is, so I'll be looking.
Southeast of
Southeast of
Medicine
Brooks.
Hat.
Oh, well,
yeah.
there we go.
so,
West, I guess.
So
Southeast of Brooks.
Palliser Regional Municipal Services, they pay, the board pays honorarium, and I believe the board pays travel, but our local person won't get travel because their meetings are always in Hannah, so. Red Deer River Municipal Users Group, the town has paid the per diem in the past and travel in the past. Veterans Memorial Highway Association, they haven't met for a few years, so I'm not sure what the process is there. Generally, they meet at most once or twice a year, and it's generally out of town. So I would suggest that that would be a town per diem.
Yeah, because that one there, they could go to, they had them at Fort McMurray
Yeah,
the one time. I forget which council was on it. And they also
but they've been
had it at Coots.
they've been very
So they've traveled a long way.
non-dormant. Dormant is a great word.
So the town would do
Well, that would be what I would
a per diem.
suggest if council wants to move forward that way.
I
The
did
other,
speak with Counselor Kroll about that, and they have contacted, them.
Yes.
Apparently they are resurrecting their,
Yeah.
the other concern I wanted to chat about that's opened a different door here is virtual meetings. So as you know, over the past 2 years, a lot of these groups, and I'm specifically looking at PEP and I'm specifically looking at Red Deer River, have had virtual meetings,
Marigold.
Community
Marigold.
Futures was. a lot.
virtual. So how do we deal with, again, I want to get some policy around how do we deal with virtual meetings? You're in town, you don't leave your house.
Included?
So is it to be included? But some of those meetings could be 3-4
I was gonna
hours.
say the time constraints have to be figured
Yeah.
into that, because I mean, if you're in a meeting for 4 hours, again, whether, and it's actually in the DVD.
In the payroll form.
Yes.
Yeah.
My comment on this would be, if we are a town council that engages in meetings, and certainly everyone in this group, I can't talk about previous councils, but we're engaged in these. We're voting members. We are making decisions that can impact our community. That, whether we're on Zoom or there, has no difference. People did not get half their paycheck because they were working from home for the last 2 years. They had to work. So the location of where they're working, I don't think should make any difference because we're still making decisions, voting on very controversial issues on occasion. And I don't think that should make any difference. If someone is not engaged, then they should be dealt with differently. But if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that shouldn't matter. A meeting is a meeting. Because the decisions were being made on these conference calls.
Yeah, I don't disagree. We've just been, what's happened since we entered into the pandemic is certain situations, some counselors have put in a per diem for virtual meetings, some have chosen not to. We haven't told them, we haven't given the direction that they can, they can't. They just have chosen and said, well, I didn't have to leave the house. I was home, it was a couple hours, it's not a big deal.
Do we need to define what a meeting consists of time-wise before a per diem is paid?
No, I don't. I
Do
was
we-
just gonna say, my example is the Henry Kruger. We've been doing them Zoom and I get paid whether I leave the house or not. They pay the
That's a
thing,
decision the commission has made.
the
Yeah.
commission's made, and I think that I agree with Councillor Sandra here that per diem should be paid. As far as I'm concerned. That way it's more fair, like there is, like Angie said here, Councillor Warwick said, if you go through it, there could be 1 or 2 councillors in here that are not getting any per diems because of what they're assigned to.
Yeah.
It does make it more fair, and it's not like it's gonna break the town or anything, and we are assigned to those boards for a reason, and if we're there representing the town, I think we should be getting paid for it.
I struggle to think that I would be paid for the hour I spend at the chamber.
But yeah, so that's where we have to define. We're
That's what I'm
almost,
saying.
we're
We
almost
need to-
sounding like we're going back to scrap the honorarium.
Yeah.
And get paid for every meeting you attend. That's kind of what I'm hearing. So you set up a council meeting. So rather than getting your honorarium for the month, you get paid for your council meeting, for your info meeting, if there's any budget meetings, special council meetings. It almost sounds like we're going back there. If we're gonna have that monthly allowance, it has to be for some purpose.
Yeah, the meetings aren't top-ups on top of your honorarium.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering too, if we would consider, doing a half day honorarium or per diem, because on here it only says the remuneration is in town for 1 full day or out of town for 1 full day. The other thing I would like to just make mention, the fact that we are doing it through VC and we are not traveling is in fact saving money, because you then have that mileage. So having it be a video conference is a cost savings.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt, there's no mileage, so.
As I said, we need to define what a meeting is.
I understand, Mr. Mayor, that an hour seems a little silly, especially if it's within town. But you're still participating in something, and I guess I'm confused, and I shouldn't be, but I am, over the monthly, what,
Honorarium.
50 cents an hour if we did it full-time over a month, because it's $300 every 2 weeks. Covers all of these meetings as well. We have 2 meetings per month through here. But I guess all of these boards pay these people for a reason, because they want participation and engagement. And I would expect that when people come back to the council meetings once a month, that they actually provide us a report. Not everybody in this room does. And I don't know what you're doing at these meetings if you're not telling us anything but saying, everything's in my report, and the report just has the dates and times of your meetings. So if we're going to have an expectation of being paid, there should be an expectation of a report at some level. I apologize because mine was long-winded, and I think, no, at least you know what I did.
The challenge, Councilor Murphy, with reports is you as a elected official have been assigned to represent the town at those meetings and make decisions at those meetings. A lot of those meetings are general housekeeping, operational decisions. I've always said if there's something special or unique that's going on with that board or committee that council should be aware of, you have a obligation to bring that up. If your meeting is consisting of general, normal day-to-day operations, there's probably not much to report.
Still let us know that. By having it blank, we have no
Well,
idea.
Well,
And
and sometimes, if there's not a lot going on, why do they need the meeting? Was the meeting relevant? And is it, maybe they're having meetings that really aren't really necessary. Maybe they're just feeling obliged to have a meeting, and whether or not it was actually something that needed to be discussed at that moment, or could have been postponed to a different date where it was actually a more productive meeting. An annual or a meeting just to discuss the housekeeping and stuff, really, is that, how necessary was that meeting?
But that's not our decision.
That's not our decision, and that would be in their Societies Act or.
Yeah, as far as having.
And
certain
you
numbers
have to-
of
you have to
yeah, I realize
trust-
that, but-
You have to trust in your representative who is appointed to those committees, and you have to trust in the others that are appointed to those committees, that they're not going to have meetings just to have meetings, because there's a cost to their organization to have those meetings. So you would hope that they're just not gonna meet, well, we're gonna meet this month for 5 minutes, just because we wanna meet for 5 minutes and
Yeah,
get
but
paid.
then there should be something to report about it.
Right.
Having an
But,
attendance listing
you get
isn't
paid the
really.
per diem, but a lot of times, like on some of the boards I sit on, like Big Country Waste and Henry Kruger, I have signing authority for the checks. So a lot of the times I'm down there at their office in between meeting dates, signing checks and everything. So I don't feel that per diem is being wasted. It's, I'm earning that. And when I do the meetings, they are reported in my roundtable thing whenever I've done them. So a report does come back. It's not that I'm going to a meeting, and a lot of them now, like Henry Kruger, we only meet every second month. Big Country Waste is 4 meetings a year. It's not like you're getting $100 every week because you attend a meeting,
So, so where we're at, we basically looked at Acadia Foundation is covered by the board, Big Country Waste covered by the board, Community Futures will be covered by the town. This Hannah District Medical Corporation is covered by the board. The Henry Kruger's board, Marigold Library, we will have town per diem. Palliser Economic Partnership Town Board for Palliser Regional Municipal Services, Town for Red Deer River, and Town for Veterans Memorial per diems. So I think we're clear on those, and the message I think I'm getting from you is if it is a Zoom meet, it doesn't matter if it's an in-person meeting or a Zoom meeting. If you're on PEP, you get a per diem.
I think that's
Zoom or
correct.
in person.
yeah.
The ones that we have left outstanding then are what I'm going to consider our more local community boards and groups that we've got included, such as Community Services Board, Fred and Frida Guter, Hannah District Chamber of Commerce, Gulf Country Club, Hannah Bloom Handler News Center, Municipal Library Board, WACA Student Exchange, Harvest Sky, Municipal Planning Commission. Those are the ones. How do we want to deal with those?
Aren't they not already on our payroll listed as a meeting in town?
Yeah,
If
but
they're
if you read the in town,
Mhm.
it basically says for all work inside the town of Hannah, including attendance at council, committee, and board meetings.
Yeah.
As well as all expenses such as gas and telephone, councilors are paid an annual honorarium. So those are the ones I think we have to get our head wrapped around, are what I consider local ones. And if council wishes to pay a per diem to Councillor Campion to go to the Community Services Board, or Councillor Kroll to go to the Fred and Frieda meetings, or Councillor Pavlicek to go to the Chamber of Commerce, we can do that if that's the direction of council.
Well, it's already been covered in here that if it's in town, it's,
Well, that's how we
Being
have been
covered
operating,
within.
but is that the way we want to continue to operate is the
well,
question.
I think that's
Well, I
part of
think that
the honorarium.
my feeling
Council
is,
Captain,
that-
hang on. Council
My opinion is that is part of the honorarium. If it's out of town, if it's,
So in-town meetings,
I think they should be part of your honorarium.
Councilor Warwick, any input?
The only other thing I have a question about just in regards to this too. So when you sit on these committees or boards, if you decide to sit on an ad hoc committee of the board or the committee that you sit on, who makes those decisions? And is that in the rightful decision of the person appointed to those boards? So there's a lot of policy making and other committees, ad hoc committees of the
I'm on
board.
4 extras.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's my question, just in regards to that then. So if I decide with Meridian Futures that I'm gonna sit on to their extra ad hoc committees, which are a lot of extra meetings, time, expenses, is that in my privy to make that decision to sit on those ad hoc committees based on the fact that I've been appointed to this board?
well, I believe so.
I would say.
I
yes.
believe so. At the end of the day, council will have to make a decision. You know, if someone was on an ad hoc committee and they were going to a meeting every week and there was, we're getting 52 per diems a year for a particular board, that's gonna be $5,000-6,000 just to sit on that board. Council may then say, look, we that's too rich for us. We're not gonna be able to contribute in that manner. But you as the representative have to make that decision on whether you think you're a good fit for that committee. You can bring some value to that committee. B, whether or not it's going to be time consuming and or expensive to the town for you to sit on that committee. And if you had a concern about that, you may want to bring it back to the mayor and say, hey, I have a chance to sit on this ad hoc committee. We're going to meet an extra 12 times a year or 24 times a year. It's going to cost this. What are your thoughts?
I guess my other, just maybe a statement more than a question is, if it was possible, I mean, as a newly elected individual, not understanding some of the dimensions of these committees and boards, would it be possible to construct a manual that deciphers all those particulars? The committees that, there was lots of question marks here of the unknowns, where those would be in there, so they'd be definitive of.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do
And
here.
I'm just,
in the
what
bylaw.
I'm saying is that in that, there's a manual that says, as a newly elected official, this is the manual, here it is, read it, this is what you're subject to, is what I'm
This is what
suggesting.
you're signing up for.
And this is what we're creating here. Like I'll be honest, this will be the third or fourth council I've worked with here. There's never been a question from anybody about any of this in my 9 years here.
I think there was,
So we kind of, when there's no questions, there's no concerns, we believe that council's got the information they need. They're ready to move forward. No one's brought anything to our attention. This group obviously brought this to our attention and said, we need to have a discussion on this. We need to figure out how we want to move forward, and that's what we're doing. So
Councilor Campion?
well, I feel, as for what Councilor Warwick said, I believe that these should be paid, like, I believe they should be paid to equalize up what a lot of the councilors are getting on the thing. I mean, the per diem should be paid, because I look at the expense thing here, and this has been an issue that I brought up with it. When we're traveling to a convention, or like Councilor Cole did with me here a couple of weeks ago, we went to Munis in Three Hills. I got paid the mileage, he got nothing. But by the same token, if you're traveling to Edmonton with you, Kim, in the company truck or whatever, I am still traveling to that city the day before the convention. I am not getting paid a per diem. All I think that I should be eligible for is the mileage, whether I'm driving or riding.
Yeah.
That's
and-
my feeling
And
on
Council
it.
Campion and I disagree on
Well,
that. But
I
you
know
paid
you
your,
do.
you
I know
paid your
you
per
do.
diem, you paid your per diem, the mileage
You're
costs.
not paid the per diem when you're traveling the day before and the day after the convention.
But
Like
rarely,
the last day of the convention, because you're traveling home, you are getting your per diem there.
Yeah.
But the day before, you're getting nothing. You're going up there for nothing.
so that can be something, I know all of our council that went to AUMA this year, they traveled up on the Sunday and didn't put in for that, that I'm aware of. I can't remember. And then they got there 4 or 5 days, however many days they were there. They got the per diem. So that's a little different situation, Councillor Campion, that if you're traveling up with Councillor Kroll to a convention beforehand, whether you get a per diem for your travel time, that certainly is on the table. But if you rode up with Fred, you should not get mileage for that because you don't have any costs incurred going there. The costs incurred are by Mr. Kroll.
Yes, you do have costs, because your time,
Time versus.
it's your
Your time.
time.
So that's a per diem
time.
versus a mileage claim.
No, because you're not getting the per diem when you're traveling there
But
to
then-
the convention.
No, but that's a different story. You guys traveled to Three Hills there and back on the same day. Twice. Right?
Yes,
So
no, 2 days.
2 days, right?
We
You
went
traveled,
2 days.
but you went together. So we paid mileage to you because you were the one who incurred the expense of traveling there. You both got your per diems for that day.
But by the same token, Councillor Kroll traveled there for the benefit of the community because, and he is, the Munis thing is a, how do you? it's a,
Mandated.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
mandatory.
required thing that you gotta do. So I think he should be reimbursed for it.
And he was through his
Reimbursed for
per diem on his time.
Got $150.
He got $150 for his day.
it. Well,
So I
You
see that
still
as two
travel
different
to-
situations. I agree, if council wishes to pay a per diem for someone traveling to a convention or a meeting and they have to travel the night before, that's a different story. And as I said to Councillor Campion, we don't have a mandatory policy that you have to ride with somebody to go, but it saves the town dollars if you carpool and do it. And that's, at the end of the day, we're looking to save as many pennies as we can. So if people are able to travel together, it saves us that mileage cost. But we don't force people to. And if Councillor Kroll wanted to drive that day and Councillor Campion, we would have paid them both mileage.
Councilor Murphy?
For 15 years, when I worked for Veterans Affairs, I was responsible for the travel claims for all of my staff. I had 45 staff. So all my recommendations I'm making are based on what the federal government does, the provincial government does. So what we're doing is not outside the realm of regular meetings. If you expect everyone to do everything volunteer, you will not get the same engagement as you can. People will miss meetings. Well, I can't afford to go. There's different reasons why people might not attend. So having a set per diem in town, $100, suggest $50 for half a day, $100 for a full day. There are ways you can make this equitable, but having this in a document, so we're not having a meeting. I'm
But
absolutely shocked that hasn't happened yet.
That being said, though, we're
Yes.
already paid an honorarium that covers these meetings. I think is.
That's the
That's the
theory
point we're
behind it.
missing.
That's the theory behind it.
So we can get rid of the honorariums and you can get paid per meeting, which creates more staff involvement,
No more
more
paperwork for you guys.
paperwork from us. Or, as I see it, we can continue with what we are. with adding, for example, the Marigold being what it is, we have a couple that definitely
Community
need to be-
futures, yeah.
need to be looked at. I would feel very uncomfortable charging half a day to go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting. I've got numerous functions that I've been involved with, welcoming new business. I would struggle to charge half an hour, half a day for going and welcoming two new business to town. I've got a speaking engagement later this month at the school. Do I charge half a day for that? And the answer is no. In my opinion.
Yeah.
So
And I deeply appreciate that point, and certainly there is a difference between that. When it comes to the subcommittees, as I said, I'm on 4. It's an expectation, if you're on the library board, that you're going to attend at least 2 of these subcommittees. Same thing for Marigold. I'm actually on 2 for Marigold now. 'Cause
So
it's an
that's something,
expectation.
Councillor Murphy, we need to add to the job description for Marigold is the subcommittees, because I know for a fact that it was listed as, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. No, 1 or 2 meetings per month. Or
Not even that.
Yeah,
It was like a
quarterly meeting. So if you're expected to do that, then we need to add that to, for
Absolutely.
lack of a better term, the job description.
For that
For
committee.
that committee. So we're appointing someone to it. I am aware of the time commitment, or better informed of the time commitment.
And in most cases, the subcommittees are less timed, would never be 52 a year. It just would never happen. But it would be 1 every 3 months. Then they report back to the main committee, which meets every other month or quarterly. It's just a matter of acknowledging that work. I understand there's a monthly honorarium, which is a very small amount. And I don't know what other towns have done. I have no idea. I'm just focusing on what I'm doing, and I'm representing, I'm making decisions, and I'm bringing them back as reports. For the smaller ones, like the library board, I'm totally fine with nothing. But for some of the bigger ones, there's a really big expectation from me.
So the focus though, to get back on the ones that we have included.
Yeah.
Is council comfortable with them being included, or does council want to see some of them brought out as a per diem job? That's what I'm trying to get from you guys is we've made some changes to Community Futures. We've made some changes to Marigold, Veterans Memorial. Are we comfortable with those changes, and the ones that are included remain included as part of your honorarium, or is there ones that are on the included list that council believes should be paid an additional per diem? That's the bottom line where I'm at.
Councillor Kroll, I know you're late to the party, but you got something to add?
I'm on 3 committees, but I've only attended 1, and that's the clinic one. And I've been paid every time I've gone there, And as far as the travel, that was my decision, or, between me and Councillor Campion, that we traveled together. I guess I could have taken my own if I felt that I wanted that extra money, or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, maybe we should look at some of these smaller committees that we're attending and whatever,
In change, you mean
and
in
just
terms
make a
of
decision.
making them paid or leaving them as is?
As far as I'm concerned, it can be left as is, but I mean, I'm not involved in those
Right.
committees, so I'm not, I shouldn't make that decision.
But you
I
are
don't-
involved in some of them, Councilor Kroll, with Fred and Frida Guter.
Yeah.
Bursary, that would be one that you would be expected to attend, that you wouldn't
Oh,
be
yeah.
compensated for.
Yeah, well, as far as I'm.
And again,
We haven't had a
No,
meeting in the
and-
last 3 months, so.
no,
I
and
mean,
Fred and Frida Guter, again, is a very
You will only
short
have-
couple
With Fred
minutes.
and Gooder, you will come to the town and get all the application things. You will distribute them to your other 2 partners. And the way I did it, I let them, because they were teachers, they knew the kids a whole lot better than I did. I let them decide it and then we get together and go through them and.
Yeah.
Cause you picked the three out, so there is,
You know,
Yeah,
and you only, so you have 2 meetings once a year.
Yeah.
And we
so
don't
we're
take-
going around
We're
that.
going around the circle and we're coming back and we're catching our tails.
What
So
are other towns doing? Do you know? Mr.
It's
Neal?
it's a hit and miss. A lot of them have gone to a similar system as us in terms of honorarium. Some of them are still, every meeting you get paid for what you attend and they submit paperwork and then they don't have them if they honorarium, they'll just get paid for the meetings they attend.
Can I ask some?
Yeah.
As far as the mileage, I worked with the provincial government for years as well, and any mileage was to deal with the wear and tear on your vehicle. And that was why you were getting that, is you paid for the fuel, and so it was a reimbursement on the expenses. It never was to, you know, you're getting an honorarium, you're already on a payroll, and you're taking your vehicle, there's wear and tear on it, and there's fuel. So I don't agree that there should be extra compensation if you're traveling with somebody else. It's a wonderful opportunity to save some money for the corporation and the town. And so I just kind of played ignorant, I guess, in the last term is when I was with the Community Futures, I just assumed that was an honorarium. I was not aware that there was a daily fee that you could submit. And so I just think that having the information available, and it was my own ignorance that I didn't ask about it. But, you know, I just felt, well, I am running, I'm supporting my community and that sort of thing. I didn't run to get paid. But there is an expense and I should have asked, but I didn't. And so just having the information so that people do know when they need to fill out this or they need to fill out that. And mileage was fine. It was covered by somebody else. But yeah, just to get the consistency so that everybody's on the
So
same page.
basically right now, Mr. Neal, if I can correct me if I'm wrong, we've agreed to a Community Futures
Per diem,
per diem. We've agreed to the
Marigold,
Marigold per diem. And that's pretty much the
and
only,
the veterans,
and the veterans one, if
if
it's
they meet, yeah.
out of town.
And Pep already had one, we just didn't know. Okay. Good.
And my understanding that will confirm through the policy too is that if you are on a board that the town pays a per diem for, if it's virtual, you will still get your per diem.
Correct.
So that's something else we need to clarify. So that's the direction I'm looking at. If you want to say no, if it's a
Any-
virtual meeting and you're in your house, you don't get paid for it, that's direction from you guys we need, so.
Any concerns from the council on that recommendation?
Support it.
And that's specifically the Zoom one. So specifically the Zoom, if you're on, and I'll use PEP as an example, or Red Deer River, because they've been doing a lot of virtual. If you're the representative for that, and the meeting is virtual, then you should get compensated for it.
Now, would that be on a half day if it's a certain number of hours, or
Yeah.
if you're on a Zoom or a phone call with Community Futures?
Well, and
Sometimes
that's
it's
one of the
only
things
20
that I
minutes
think
or
we-
half an hour.
Yeah,
So
we could add to that as well as what a half day or what a meeting consists of, definition of a meeting. If it's less than 3 hours, it's a half day. If it's more than 3 hours.
Well, I
it's-
think the premise is it's basically less than half a day,
It's covered.
it's covered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want, I hope you didn't want to go to a minimum saying,
Oh,
if you've
no,
been there 15 minutes, it's
Yeah.
included. If you've been there,
no,
yeah.
like, if you've got a meeting, whether it's 15 minutes long or half a day, that's a half a day just per diem. If it's more than half a day, then you get the full day per diem.
Okay,
Is that, are we,
I think we're everybody on the right page or on the page, not necessarily the right page. On
So-
the page.
The one I just turned in was the Red Deer River one, was an executive meeting the other day. I turned it in for a half a day. Because I was in town.
Right, it was virtual.
It was virtual, yeah, so that is,
So according to my understanding of the group today, that would be covered.
Correct.
so that I don't get the 100 is what you're
No,
saying.
no, when I
No.
say it would be covered, there would be a per diem
There'd be-
paid
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I will agree with that.
because it's virtual.
Because you're still attending the meeting there.
So, excuse me, so where's the half day on here then? Because there's no indicator, there's just an in-town, full day and an out-of-town full day. So there is no, where is the half day honorarium or per diem on here? I don't see it listed in this. one.
Because the half day in town is part of your honorarium. That's why it's not on the list, correct?
So there's no half day out of town then?
No,
Okay.
so we'll clear that up. If you guys are comfortable with 100 for a half a day and 150 for a full day
Out of town.
out of town. And in town, do you want a different,
I think leave
leave it the same? If you're in a town meeting,
well, ultimately, Mr. Nell, I mean, if you're out of town, I mean,
it's gonna be more than a half a
I was
day.
gonna say, with getting to Drumheller and back, unless it's a 2-hour meeting, it's a full day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think. we need to-
Any out of town should be a full day.
That, and yes, so I don't think
I
we need
agree.
to convolute it any
Okay.
more than it already.
So out of
is.
town, a full day, in town, do you want to do a half day or a half day at $50 and a full day at 100, or you want to just leave it?
I say leave it alone.
The half day's included in your honorarium, a full day is the per diem.
I am not understanding
That's a little
this.
bit, yeah.
That makes sense.
I'm not following you on that, Mayor Pavichuk.
How
So,
many you get half?
we'll use Red Deer River as an example. So, it's an in-town meeting if it's virtual. So if it goes 3 hours, Council Camping was going to claim.
Okay, I was just throwing that out.
Okay.
I'm okay with not,
So I
think we
just
should
think
I think we should have a half day. 'Cause if-
in-town
Yes,
half day.
yes, I think that's fair. Like
Okay,
if
do you
you're
wanna-
having, and I know the motion can't be made at this meeting, but I think if you have an in-town meeting, a virtual meeting, you, for 4 hours, that is less than 4 hours. I'm assuming that
Okay,
that a
yeah.
full day is 8 hours. But in town, if you have a half day, you get the half of the honorarium that's listed on here.
Okay, so for example, and knowing you're on PEP, so PEP has a virtual meeting. You're in town, it's 4 hours or less, you would want a half day in-town rate.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know what?
If it's more than 4 hours, you would have an in-town full day rate.
Correct.
It's never gonna matter, because the fact that I spent 6 hours the day before and 4 hours the previous night to
Prepare,
prepare for that meeting, I mean,
And that's
you
where
know,
your
there's a lot of
honorarium-
differentials here. Meridian Futures is the same way.
Mhm.
There's a lot of reading and extra prep to do what we did.
Marigold's about 150 pages per meeting.
Yes,
Yeah.
us too. And so,
So
Yeah,
out
PEP
of
is the
town,
same, yeah.
$150 for the day. In town, we have $100 for the day. Do we want to make that 50 and 100, or do you want to make it 75 and 150?
I'm fine with 50 and up.
I'm okay with
I'm good
50.
with you.
1,500, yeah.
Okay, so for example, then Councillor Campion, your Red Deer River meeting that you just had via Zoom, if it was less than 4 hours, you would get $50. Here, everybody's.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll establish that too as an in-town half day, 50 and 100 for.
So virtual now becomes in town.
We consider a virtual meeting an in-town meeting.
So an example would be our RCMP orientation session. That would be a half day. That was training.
I think that was a choice to go.
Yeah,
It
those
wasn't-
ones,
it
those
wasn't-
ones,
we
like,
weren't signed
thanks
to
for
that.
bringing those up. They're a little,
Pain in the ass.
they're little,
Excuse my
no,
language, but
they're
yeah.
little, they're a little different because there's no requirement no formal requirement for you to be in attendance at those. It's not part of a committee or part of a
Well,
board.
it's
that
like
you're-
my welcome to town
Yeah,
visitation.
so I would consider, again, I would consider that as part of your honorarium.
Well, and I think it's just part of getting more
I've got to go
understanding.
speak to the 2 grade 6 classes for a
So the
couple of
other thing
hours.
that you could label that under is your training
Raising
allowance,
shit.
from what I understand.
Yeah, that's
So
what
if
I'm,
you want to claim that under your maximum per year, that would be
Yeah,
your
that's-
training. Any of those
Yeah.
would fall, in my opinion,
Yeah.
under the training allowance. So if you want to categorize that.
Basically, as
use
a
your
council,
training.
you have control of your training allowance, how you want to use that $2,000. You want to
So
use it
that-
for those meetings, you can.
So as an example on that one, Counselor Crowe attended the, was that when you went to
The economic development,
my alarm clock didn't go off, I missed it.
that was
That was
the
your
economic
training.
development
Yeah.
training.
The economic.
That would be
development
training, that would be training.
So he is entitled to a per diem for that one? Yeah,
Wasn't
See,
the,
I agree
wasn't
with
the
that.
training basically if you had to pay to get in there? Like,
There was no cost, but a per diem.
no, but there was no cost. And there's a certain point that, a person wants to attend something for their own self-improvement so that you can make a decent choice when the opportunity arises to vote in or against a certain thing. I don't agree with a per diem on that. I think that's my choice to attend and it shouldn't be the town's responsibility to pay it.
But Counselor Kroll could use that per diem as towards his $2,000 training,
part of his training.
part of his training. Like, you guys have control over what you want to use for training that $2,000 allotment. If Counselor Kroll decides he's considered that training, there was no cost to register, so the only cost to him that would be recorded against that $2,000 would be his per diem. And that would be a decision that Counselor Kroll would make. That's how I would interpret it.
Correct.
and I want to clarify, I certainly never attend meetings on the basis of income, because I attend
Oh.
every one. I don't miss them unless I absolutely have
Yeah.
to, but it's just one of those questions, so. okay,
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
can be
and I
used that
never,
way.
I was not implying that. It's just,
Oh, no.
there's this, as far as an individual that, we're getting an honorarium and that sort of thing, but, are you going to attend something because you can get some money back, or are you going to attend it because it's increasing your knowledge on that topic? And, that's my opinion is I'm not going to nickel and dime the town to death because, I can take it off of my training budget or whatever. It's a choice, I guess.
But
whether
that's, I
attend
was
or
gonna
not.
say, Councilwoman, that's your choice, whether you decide to charge $100 because it's in town.
Yeah,
or you
Yeah,
don't.
but there should be more direction. Well, I guess that is a choice.
When we opened up that $2,000 can of worms, that's,
And it's all new. It was all
Yeah.
new as of that decision, so. So what we're trying to do is
clear the worm.
clear as many of the gray areas and questions up, and we will bring something back to council that hopefully will clear up those gray areas and allow us to move forward from that point. Clear. Will we get them all? Maybe we don't get them all and we'll have to tweak it as we move along, but hopefully we get the basics covered and you have a good idea moving forward. Like I said, in my 9 years here, this is the most discussion council's had about per diems and travel and honorariums in the 9 years I've been here, so.
Well, going from my previous experience prior to the election, we usually set the per diems and everything if there was a change
Right, and there
for
hasn't
the,
been
for the
change.
future council. That way we're not sitting here like this giving ourselves a raise. So that's why we always set it usually prior to the election.
Well,
So with this half day thing, if it went $50, that still doesn't include, as an example, the community service board?
right now, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong,
Community
the
services
ones that
board
are
is covered.
included as part of your
covered.
honorarium.
Part of your honorary.
So there's no.
Because your
per diems.
honorarium covers you for your council meeting, your info sessions, any tours you do, and communicating with the public for, because we all get phone calls and things like that. That's what the per diem is for that honorarium. It's for your wage for sitting on town council. That's the way it was always led, that I've been led to believe.
But those ones that are included and on your list is included, have been included at least the last 9 years.
Yeah.
As no payments for. So again, that's what I'm trying to get consensus from this group. If the group's consensus, and maybe not everybody's in favor, but if the group's consensus that we can bring forward with is that those ones that we have listed as included right now are, if you're on those committees, that's part of your honorarium. If you don't like that, then we need consensus to add, whether it's the Community Services Board or any of these, with the per diem. So my gut was that council was comfortable with leaving them included. If
you read the book.
I read the book right.
I'm in favor of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
So that would mean Council Campion, Community Services Board would be included in your honorarium, no per diem.
So it is now, yeah.
Okay, just so we're clear.
But the others, like the community futures and things.
Right,
like
the
that,
two or three that we added.
The ones we added.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, we're good.
I appreciate the time you've spent on this, by the way.
No, it's good discussion. It's good
Very
discussion and,
Thank you.
and we want you guys to be clear and we want clarity at the end of the day. So, like I said, it hasn't been an issue with previous councils, whether we've done it right or they've done it right. We've gone along that perspective. And at the end of the day, I think you all know that your financial contribution you receive from the town of Hannah is recorded in the annual financial statements separately. So you all will be listed in the financial statements what you were paid during that fiscal year. So trying to be transparent and at that point in time, and I'll be 100% honest with you, Councillor Stickle, as a counselor, he never put forward any per diems to the town. That was his decision. He would go to the Muni 101 and he'd say, I'm not going to bother. Granted, the committees he was on, he would have got an honorarium for Palliser and an honorarium for Acadia. But that was a decision he made as a counselor, that he was comfortable with his honorarium covering any of these other meetings, and that was a decision he made. We don't force people to put them in. If they choose not to, they choose not to. But that was an example of an individual who that's how he wanted to deal with it. So.
For the council that wasn't here prior to it, a few years ago, the federal government changed the income tax law on it, where you were allowed, what percentage
You
was
used
it?
to get 1/3 of your council.
Yeah, 1/3 of your council
Tax-free.
Thing was tax-free, and then they dropped it.
Yeah.
So you pay tax on every dollar.
Yeah.
That you make, yeah. And a lot of the communities that at the time, they rewrote their laws and everything on their remuneration rules, so that the councils got a lot of that back. A lot of it was paid back to them in an expense thing, which was tax-free.
So what
It was
what happened was if you get made $20,000 for the town of Hannah, from the town of Hannah as a council member, 1/3 of that was not taxable. So you only got taxed on the 13,000 or whatever. Then they changed that so you were taxable on the full 20,000. Some councils did then change their remuneration and increase their remuneration
To offset.
to offset the loss. The council of the day decided it's minimal, we're okay with it, we're just gonna leave it. And depending on what your tax situation is as a whole, it affects some people more than differently than others. But we did not adjust our honorariums to make up for the difference. If you were gonna lose $100 a month on taxes, we didn't increase your honorarium by that much, so you had the same take home, so.
The bigger municipalities did, like,
Yeah.
They tried to make that loss up to their council, so. However, we never changed ours, did we?
We're not making 70 grand a year.
No, and
No,
council,
oh, I know.
council of that day, basically, it's same as the discussion around the table here is, they're not here for the dollars. They're here to provide a service, they're here to get compensated, fairly
Fairly.
for their time and their expenses.
It helps
But
support my habit.
they're trying to keep the tax dollars reduced as much as they could. So,
Yeah, actually, my wife is very happy with my remuneration because that's what I'm allowed to spend on hockey jerseys now, so. She,
Some community, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Some communities like Red Deer County increased the amount that they pay. They're actually the highest paid counselors in Alberta on the basis that you get quality. You don't show up on election day and only 3 people
Yeah.
put their name down because everything's clear, it's transparent. And I can assure you, not one resident in this town could question the work I do because I put in the work. If someone refuses to charge anything, but there's no reports, no engagement during the meetings, then they're getting what they pay for. That's my
But a
view.
lot of the councillors in the counties and that are sitting there making decisions on municipal planning and things like that, because in a lot of places that they do, so
Yeah.
they can have 3-4 meetings in one day. And I know lots of the councillors from the county of Red Deer, like Red Deer County and Neil County, they have 2-3 meetings a day, and that's why they're
full-time staff.
that's why they're honorariums so that high.
Yeah.
No, they're not full-time,
Well-
they're just councillors.
So
That's all they
are
are.
we
Okay,
good?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
you.
So does, Mr. Mayor, we do have a resolution or recommendation on that. I'm not sure where I put it either, so.
It's not where it's supposed to be, sir.
It's in my pile here, but I'm not sure.
Recommendation motion, council directs administration to prepare council remuneration and expense policy to be brought back at the regular council meeting for review and approval. Motion.
Yeah.
Council Campion. All in favor?
So
Sure.
that's what our goal will be. Hopefully, we will capture the consensus from today and bring that back for.
Will be in your packages, so take a look at it. If there's something that you don't like, bring it back, Mr. Neal, first, and we can hopefully address.
Well, I don't know, Mayor Pavischuk, we'll grasp what we think we heard today.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, so.
And, but if we get to the table and you've got issues, that's where I think the discussion has to be as a group,
Okay,
not Councilor Murphy using an example.
okay,
Say,
that's
Kim, I
fine.
didn't think that was captured the right way. I'm gonna go, well, that's how I captured it. If the rest of 4 of 7 councilors, like, I think
Okay,
that's
that's
the
how you,
best.
yeah, that's fine.
So I hopefully will try and capture it accurately and move
Okay.
forward. And you might not all be on the same page when it came to it, but we'll go with what the majority decides. So
Okay, so the next one
did we
is,
vote? Yeah, we did.
yeah, we
vote.
did, carry. The next one is the ambulance availability and response concerns. I spoke with Mr. Neal about, I guess, my concerns. I've been fairly fortunate. Me and my immediate family have been lucky enough to have an ambulance when we needed one. Hearing the horror stories of hand ambulances being hung up in Calgary and responding to Calgary calls, and I realize they're not, and this is careful, not hand ambulance or AHS's ambulances. So I mentioned to Mr. Neal about, this is something that's, I think, would be near and dear to to my heart. I talked to Ken Hansen as well about it. And kind of, for lack of a better word, pin the tail on Ken and let him run with it. So this is what came back from that, so.
So what I put forward, like I say there's no motion required at this time. I know Mayor Pavichuk and I have talked about this as a community issue. I think it's more than a community issue, it's an Alberta issue. It's happening everywhere, not just in Hannah. And I did include in your package the letter or email from Alberta Health Services and Emergency EMS about their 10-point plan that they were embarking on, and some of the recommendations in that plan that they felt would improve the situation. So I guess my thought was, Mr. Mayor, that we kind of wait and see how the implementation of these methods go. And if there's not improving, not making a difference, then maybe we need to bring Mr. Hansen in, maybe bring in David Mole, because our fire guys are responding to medical assists, and have that discussion. And David's with EMS and what they're doing and how they're doing things. So I haven't heard as much, and maybe I've been away, I haven't heard as much about EMS issues in the province lately as I had, a month or two ago. So I don't know if any of these changes are making a difference or whatever. They're hanging their hat on. They've had an extraordinary number of call volume that they're not used to. And that's why they're running into some of these challenges. They're doing things what we think is not in the best, most efficient manner, but some of these recommendations could address that. So
Well, I think that a lot of this is Councillor Kroll's sitting on the board, on the medical board, because that's where it's dealt with. I went through that 10-point thing, and I had some issues with numbers 2, 3, 6, and 10 and how they're going to implement them. I don't have a copy of it here, so.
okay.
Sorry,
Two is transferring low priority calls to other agencies in consultations with EMS physicians. That's number 2.
That was number 2.
That's
The first one was an hours of work project to help ease staff. Second was transferring low priority calls to other agencies.
like, what do they,
Consultation with
how do they
EMS.
like, if they're the one calling it, how do they consider what's a low priority?
Life or death.
Like the one that said they don't have to send an ambulance if there's no injuries. How the hell do they know that? If there's an
that's-
automobile accident,
That's the automobile accident. They've already done that. They stopped as of December 1st. If there's an automobile accident where there are no injuries reported, they don't send anybody, and they don't send any EMS. Before, whether there was, if Danny Pavichuk bumped my fender and it was reported, the ambulance came. They're only coming now if the person who's calling 911 says there are injuries. We need medical attention.
well, somebody in Dealey did that last week, and 3 of them showed up, so. And nobody knew what it was all about. There was 3 of them sitting in one house, 3 ambulances. Yep. 3 of them. And nobody in the community seemed to know what the hell went on.
Yeah.
But there was 3 of them sitting there.
someone obviously called, or numerous people called.
But again, that's a dispatch
Well,
problem and a dispatch
2 of them
issue.
were dispatched out of Anna because I know somebody that passed them both. They both had lights and sirens going and pulled into Dealey. There they were.
I can't, I don't
So,
know anything
yeah,
about it, but
It's their dispatching system that they got is just
So-
retarded.
Yeah, but this is the recommendations that they're gonna try and, well, they're going to implement it or trying.
they
to
think that
implement.
these will improve the service and the availability. I guess the proof will be in the pudding.
Well, I was gonna say, we have to give it a chance.
That was my thought, is we need to give it a chance before we move forward with any further investigations. But I know you keep in touch with Ken, I keep in touch with David. And again, our community's small enough, if we hear there's not ambulances in town, the word gets out.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanson is the current manager of the ambulance society?
No,
So why is Mr. Hanson the person appointed out of curiosity?
no, it wasn't. Mr. Hanson isn't appointed.
Okay, so he's just someone we
He's the
consult.
chairman of
Yeah.
the clinic.
He's the
Yeah.
chairman of the medical clinic, but he's the former manager of the Hannah Hospital
No,
site
yes, I'm
and
aware
the
of that.
Hannah ambulance
'Cause, yeah.
service when the Hannah ambulance service was locally
But
operated.
currently he is the chairman.
Currently, he's
of-
the chairman. And just to clarify for Councillor Campion in terms of what the Hannah Medical Clinic's role is, the ambulance is not their role.
It's not.
No.
Their role is the clinic. It's not the
Isn't that
hospital.
Tim's part?
It's not the hospital. It's not the ambulance. It's not with AHS. It's with operating our clinic and our
Doctor
doctors.
recruitment.
So my next question
Well, I
is
just
then
would-
why do we not have a current person who is a hospital administrator or the manager of the Hannah Ambulance Society? Why would we
We
have
don't have
someone?
a Hannah
There isn't
ambulance
an
society.
ambulance
There is none.
society.
It
There
was
is
dissolved.
no-
There's no
Alberta-
administrator in Hannah.
Everybody else took it over. They, at one time, a few years back, they owned the ambulances, they owned the medical clinic and everything. They controlled it all. And they had a lot of money in the bank, in their bank account. I
They just,
forget what it
Hannah
was.
Ambulance Society dissolved, I'm guessing probably 12, 15 years ago, maybe.
No.
So I wouldn't know that. So now I know,
Okay,
thank you.
sorry. I-
So my
I was-
question is,
Fred would
why do
know.
we not
When
have
was it,
someone
Fred, do you know?
who can actually make decisions? Having someone who can consult with us is great. And
In
Mr.
terms of-
Hanson's, wonderful. I've known him for.
In terms of
since I
what
moved here.
decisions, though, Sandra, that's my concern.
What this list is all about, right? So I guess my question is, what can we as a council do to impact these 10 points? Through Mr. Hanson.
I think well, I don't know if we do anything through Mr. Hanson.
Okay,
But I guess the next step would be whether we could get someone from Alberta EMS who's in charge of ambulances to come out to answer any questions
Right.
council may have.
I guess I just want to make sure it's something that can tangibly make a difference because we need to fix this. And as I said, Mr. Hanson's an excellent person, but if he does not have the clout to make a difference, can we find somebody who can?
I don't know, I'll
There's-
be honest with you, Counselor Murphy, I don't know if anybody local has any clout with AHS.
Doesn't have to be local, but can we pressure someone to come in and talk to us?
We can ask to see if we can get someone from EMS
EMS,
come out to speak to us and answer any questions.
you don't look very hopeful.
I think it might take some time.
They-
They don't want to necessarily be out answering these questions and in
I
the,
know.
you
They
know,
have
in the public eye. To be honest with you, they're trying internally to operate and fix it and move forward and to be going to various communities to engage, that's taking time away from them trying to fix it. But we can certainly look at that avenue, Councilor Murphy.
Thank you.
Based on the fact that this document came out, obviously they realized that there's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could put in a request for Ken Hansen to come and speak to us when he gets some information of value to kind of keep us up to date on what his
But is
opinion
Ken
is.
collecting anything right now? I'm looking at
No,
Mayor
Ken
Foster.
had a quick meeting and I believe it was, forgive me for my ignorance, with Darcy, anyway, same, he's involved with the EMS
Okay.
and to revive, for lack of a better word, our Alberta,
Our
our own local ambulance authority. Ken estimated approximately $3 million to
For us to
resurrect
do
it, resurrect it
And have our own service.
and have our own service. So what that would entail would be buying ambulances, training people, finding somewhere to house those ambulances because we would not be a part of AHS. So we would have to house those ambulances. And right now, the Castor, has their own
Yeah.
ambulance.
Yeah.
East Central, East
Yeah.
Central.
Is
So-
DEMSA gone?
Opportunity.
What's
DEMSA's
that?
gone now?
DEMSA is not ambulance.
No,
DEMSA
the
is
society.
the
Yeah, it's
society,
just a
it's a medical
society now.
society. They come to the rodeo, the arena, whatever, they provide,
Privately,
yeah. And
They're a step in between
In between.
because we know we're in a vast area, and if
Yes.
someone calls from Spondon who needs something, the
dispatch,
premise was they would have local trained people who could
Mhm.
possibly be there quicker and provide some initial care
And they're
while
amazing.
they're waiting
They've
for
been
an ambulance. to arrive.
wonderful.
So,
I
think
wonder,
the
is there any
biggest-
opportunity to maybe work with Castor? To try and get more of an east, well, and the eastern
yeah,
realm and create a private or, with them as well?
there's the $3 million approximately.
See, and the other thing is Alberta Health Services, if you step on their toes, they cut off your funding. That's the big thing. That's the biggest,
Don't tell them.
Yeah. Like it's,
A control thing, yeah.
Well, and like I said, when I initially talked to Kim, and then it was very shortly
Yeah, this
after
came
this 10-step came out. And, but yeah, so Ken and I talked to Ken briefly about it because he was involved with it, very involved with it
Yeah.
before. And I asked him just over a coffee, what would it cost to resurrect the Hannah Ambulance Authority? And $3 million rolled out of his mouth quite quickly. And that's a big chunk of change. I'm not saying that it's not attainable, but we'd have to, again, realize and understand how the Hannah, if we were to resurrect it, how the Hannah Ambulance Authority would interlock with AHS. Like it's going to be
Yeah.
it's not as, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Councilwoman.
Well, I wonder, that just sort of sparks a comment about special areas. And
No, and
service,
that's part and
on a
parcel.
regional area or a Harvest Sky regional,
Yeah,
have it a region, so it's all of special areas, and that is what seems to be the issue, is the space in special areas, which is hard to service. So maybe if it's something that special areas is, and then every community within it puts money into, kind of like the fire station, and maybe that's a site where, ambulance could be housed.
I think from a town of Hannah Council, we service the special areas and we would follow the same boundaries as our fire department does.
Yeah.
I don't know that, I'm not saying we can't make this bigger, but I would like to, if we do go to this route, focus on Hannah and perhaps grow it beyond. But I think initially, I don't think we want to try and change the entire ambulance service for Eastern Alberta.
No, but for special areas, then you've got more financing available. You've got sort of.
No, I'm
You know,
hearing
on
what
that
you're saying,
area
but
that-
as soon as we do
Yeah, start
special
small.
areas, then we
Yeah,
have the
start
Acadia,
small
then we
and
have
build.
Starland, then we have,
No, but this is because, maybe Acadia is, well, yeah, we got.
So end of the
Halo does
day,
that.
my comment would be, do we just want to wait and see how things go? Do we want to invite Mr. Hanson to an initial weekend, see if Ken's available for a meeting at our next info meeting, and see if he's available and he could provide history on what he did or answer any questions you may have about moving forward? I'm not saying Ken is the guru and Ken can do everything, but Ken is probably the most knowledgeable
link we have.
person we have in our community. Even though he hasn't been involved directly with them for a while, he's still got some connections and he still understands as better as anyone does how AHS operates and what we could do. So I could certainly invite Ken to see if he's available to come to the next council. info
I'd
meeting.
sure love to hear the
me too.
history behind it, and all of that sort of thing. And if he's got any maybe opinions as to, I would
What to
like to
do?
hear him come and speak about the ambulance.
My
service.
understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know Fred was involved. I wasn't here when the change happened, but my understanding is over the years, more and more communities were dissolving their ambulance services and going back to AHS. And AHS, again, a strong union, strong collective agreements. They were having issues with how Hannah Ambulance operated their ambulance, because an example is Brent Olison was working for the town, but he was on call as an EMS responder. So if he's out driving the grader and he's on call for EMS, he would leave the grader and he would go deal with that ambulance call. And that was not anywhere direction that AHS wanted to go, and didn't believe that was a professional
And even the other,
EMS system. And they were
AHS.
paying more.
Yeah.
And so if you went as an ambulance person with the qualification, if you joined AHS, you made a whole pile more money as an ambulance worker for AHS than you did for the Hannah ambulance system.
and the same thing, like the way there's shifts posted, and for example, we'd have people that were capable of doing 2 shifts out of a 4 rotation, and AHS wanted no part of that. They wanted 4 shifts or nothing, where when the ambulance authority operated, I mean, they had a list,
A
and you
roster.
could put 2 in, then you took 2, and there was enough people that were, for lack of a better word, aggressive or avid, and they would fill whatever shifts that weren't taken up by volunteers with an honorarium. So
Yeah.
So I will invite Mr. Hanson, and that'll continue the discussion anyways. And like I said, he's probably
So I
That's
think
fine,
yeah.
with that, if you have any questions to ask of Ken to save us some time,
prepare
prepare them and send them to
Send it to me and I
Kim,
can,
and,
and that's on the premises available.
yeah, no, exactly, correct.
Thank you. That's great.
One comment I'd like to make on it, it seems to me that the ambulance thing went to hell when they changed the location of where they were calling them from. Remember they had Red Deer? David knows exactly what went on.
Well,
When they
changed.
took it out of Red Deer and they put it in Calgary and Edmonton, like even places like Grand Prairie flipped it out.
Yeah.
And because these guys are further away, and that's what's caused the biggest part of this problem.
Well,
It's where they're calling them at.
There's lots of things that are
Okay.
problems, I mean.
But even their operation manual, in terms of we take, Hannah Ambulance takes someone into Calgary before they can get out of the city. They're the closest ambulance to a call in the city. So the dispatcher's sending them to that call in the city. They can't get back. They can't get back into Hannah because they're too busy dealing with calls in the city once they get into the city. And it sounds like through this, that's one of the things that they're trying to fix.
Getting them back.
I know in November when I got, or no, it was in June, I was being transferred to the Red Deer Hospital. No, it was a year ago in November. They called the ambulance to take me, to transfer me, but they had a local call in town. So that eliminated that ambulance. The other one was already on a road trip, so they called the one out of Castor to come.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get there because it was a snowstorm.
Yeah.
So they had to wait, a couple extra hours till that first crew that did the local
We're
were
available.
available to
Yeah.
take me.
Which
that
could be
could-
life or death.
Yeah, but that could happen.
Yeah, it
even if they
could
had
be.
a hand off.
Yeah,
yes, that's right.
But there was, the thing was, the crew is tied up in that condo they got here. The vehicle is sitting there, but nobody to drive it.
But the challenge is, as Mayor Pavlicek said, is you can find yourself in a situation, if you have 4 ambulances, they might all be out. Like you can't plan for the worst case scenario or staff for the worst case scenario. So that's what we'll do there, Mr. Mayor, if council is comfortable. As I know it was a hot button item in our community. Again, I've been around lately, and whether it's
There
quieted
hasn't
or
been
not.
much.
So whether that's a good sign or not, I don't know, but Ken would be able to provide us with some information and direction, I think, from
So
anybody.
again, make sure if you have any questions or ideas or thoughts to forward them to Mr. Neal, and so Ken can be prepared.
Yeah,
Okay, next is the Commissioner of Oaths information.
so Councilor Murphy, I'm not sure if I've given you what we need to give you, but I know there was questions, and it's something we haven't addressed with previous councilors or councils before either, is Commissioner Vos.
No, you're.
I don't know how often you've been addressed to do it,
I've already done 4.
but you are all, when you are elected, you are all ex officio commissioner for oaths. So I don't profess to be an expert on commissioner for oaths. I'm not a commissioner. Hopefully this booklet answers some of your questions. If you go through it, read it, it tells you what your responsibilities are. It does provide examples in terms of how you need to sign, where you need to sign, how you need to deal with certain situations. So I don't know if that captures enough training, Councilor Murphy, but
That's wonderful. It's a great start. Thank you. I
but
appreciate that.
keep the booklet, read it. I don't profess to be an expert. I don't know how many of you had, like Councilor Murphy's done some.
I've done probably 4 in 11 years, but, and our previous CEO recommended to us not to get involved in weddings and things like that. It gets too legal, so avoid those kind of issues is what we were told, so.
You have to feel comfortable. You have to
Yeah.
feel comfortable doing it. And if someone comes to ask you to be a commissioner also, and if it's something that you don't feel comfortable with,
Don't.
you have every right to say,
Don't
I'm
do it.
sorry, I'm not comfortable with doing this. And there are people who do that in town. Like I was at both Ross Todd and Smith and Hersey this week to get things commissioned. And I think someone at Western Financial can do it as well. So can do it as well if you're not sure.
Insurance brokers.
The important thing to put down that when I quickly read through this was when you're filling it out and you say Commissioner Bowles, make sure you say town councilor. Because you're not appointed as one and by the province. So you need to say town council. You need to detail your office, elected office status. So
And your expiry date is October 2025. At the end of your council term.
Yeah.
That's your expiry date,
I
because you have to show it.
I referred mine to lawyers. I think there is a certain amount of legal liability for doing
yes,
stuff, and that's where I had, when I was with AFSC, we were assigned a number, like identification number and our term end date and all that sort of thing, and it was just specific for our corporation. It wasn't for any other stuff. So yeah, I agree that you have to feel comfortable and have some knowledge of who and what you're dealing with.
And make sure you have identification, you know who the person is. And then in all these cases, these are people that I know.
Yeah,
yeah.
But
Yeah, if you don't feel, my recommendation would be if you feel comfortable, go for it. If you don't feel comfortable,
Somebody shows up off the street and goes, hey.
you're Commissioner Willis, I need you to sign this for me.
Yeah.
because it could come
And
back.
read
to
it
bite you
before
in
you
the
sign
end.
it.
Well, there is a minimum, your personal liability up to
Yeah.
$5,000.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
living
For a
in the,
small offense.
I'm living in the CM Ponce, I need you to sign that. I got a right to leave.
So that's all I had here. I know Council
I
Murphy had
appreciate
asked for it. If you need more, we can probably
It's a good
see if
thing
there's
to have
somebody who
them
can come
look,
in and do a
It is.
training,
I
but
got them printed for 'em.
hopefully the booklet will answer some questions.
I don't know about the rules about denying a service. I'll have to look into that, whether or not you actually can, if you are commissioners for oath and they have all the documentation, if you can deny the service.
But I think if you don't feel that you're qualified enough to be able to do it,
Just
I
don't-
don't think,
Then I think
my
you've been
question
given
would
it.
I
be,
don't think you're obligated.
I don't think anybody's
You're never
enforced
obligated.
to do it.
That's what I need to.
That I don't know for
just
sure,
to
but
make
I would,
sure we're
Yeah.
I would be
protected.
surprised if you were forced to. You didn't have an option not to decline, so. Any further questions there?
No.
Okay, read through the booklet. Like I said, I don't profess to be an expert in it either, so. The last one, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Hannah Healthy Living Strategies.
you guys have got that
Study.
199 pages memorized?
Yeah.
Scared the
That's
for
shit out of me
sure.
when I opened up the information package and it's 237 pages. Oh my lord.
Obviously, I don't have any expectation that you know it like the back of your hand, but this was another study that Harvest Sky got funding for. And through the Doug Griffiths 13 Ways, he focused a lot in his stuff on having a healthy community, active community, lots of community events and activities and opportunities to make good quality of life. So they've asked this. I didn't meet with them. Gwen did meet with them on a couple occasions. I think Kevin did as well. They tried to look at our existing facilities. They did talk to our user groups and get recommendations from our user groups on improvements that they would recommend or like to see. There was no surprises in this document for me. I think when you read through it, you'll find that the majority of our facilities that we operate, our users are very happy that they have that service, that it's available, and they're, quite pleased with the level of service they get. There are, if they're asked what, in a perfect world, what could we do better? There's some recommendations, but there's nothing there that's significant. The biggest one for us that we have some work to do on is with minor ball, is with the ball nuts. That's probably the biggest one out of here. Is the triplex was built in the early 90s. It was built on town land, and that was a swamp.
Yeah, you can see where the almost.
So it has a high water table. When we do get, a decent amount of rain, the fields become somewhat challenging to play on, and I know that they'd like to improve that. So we've been working with them a little bit. We've asked them to, step up to the plate and come up with some dollars to move forward. And if they could come up with some dollars, it's easier for the town to then work with that group, whether they apply for grants. The challenge is they're a volunteer group moving forward, and things get left behind. Oh, geez, we didn't get around to that. We didn't get around to this. So rain causes an issue. Without rain there, the fields are in good condition and able to be played. So there is a little bit of some recommendations on each one's. Ball is probably the biggest in my mind. Community center, we're trying to deal with through that grant program. So we're already moving forward there. Skate park is one we need to follow up with, because there's not a formal group there, and we need a better skate park. We need this, we need that. So we probably have to do a little bit of work around that.
My 11-year-old granddaughter would love to tell you what's wrong with it.
Okay, which
Which isn't a bad thing,
No.
because I have no clue.
yeah. So I don't expect you to know all this. I thought the timing was pretty good in the fact that we are going to go into the arena. We're going to go into the pool, Curl and Ray Community Center, Centennial Place on Saturday. So there might be some stuff in here that you see and you go, oh, okay. I've asked Kevin to basically, we're not going to spend a lot of time in the areas that are public that you see every day. We'll spend time down in the Zamboni room where we have some issues. Kevin can explain to you what the issues we have, why we have the issues. We'll spend some time in the pool pump room, so you'll understand how that works. You see the outside stuff, you see how it moves forward. So I just thought the timing was right. There's, like I said, we would just have a recommendation to accept it for information. And then if there's any questions or concerns as we move forward, it's a document we can use as we move forward, looking at budgets in the future and improvements at these facilities. So.
Can I just make a comment? I agree with the triplex, and I think there's so much opportunity with that. Providing that it was, upgraded to the point that it could be a potential for a ball academy or tournaments, like more tournaments and more business to our community and stuff. And so I really like that idea that it's on there.
The tough one with ball, and we know that all of our recreation facilities are subsidized. We know that. But when you look at ball
and underutilized.
When you look at what we receive for revenue from our minor ball and stuff in comparison to the cost, it's not anywhere near.
Yeah.
But you can't charge them a whole bunch of, like if you look at percentage at arena, we might get 40% recovery, 50% recovery, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't know the figures off the top of my head. When I look at ball, we get 2%, 5%. So.
But if they were to apply for grants. and-
Well, on the capital side,
And
yeah.
on that end of it, to have, pay some of the expenses for doing the renovations and that sort of thing, I think there could be so much more positive utilization and would be worth the investment. if
I'm
they
sure
were
I
to
know the
provide-
answer to this, but do we have someone in the office to assist minor ball,
Yeah.
minor hockey?
Yeah, we've approached them about any grants
Yeah.
that we'll write them for them.
No, and that's because I know the Zamboni minor
Yeah,
hockey
yeah, Was the
was,
one who got the dollars.
Yeah.
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 Because we're, as a municipality, we're not eligible.
no, and I'm just saying though, like, 'cause
So
I
minor
know,
ball would have to apply.
but do we have someone on the town side that could tell them what?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and we probably have to bring it back up again to refresh it, so.
yeah, no, because I know, like I said, the Zamboni was minor hockey, without minor hockey, the new Zamboni didn't happen, so.
And I would assume that if we move forward with a new Zamboni in the future, that will be one of the first things we would go to, would be minor hockey or figure skating, who have that ability to apply to hopefully get half of the funding.
It's actually a scary thought, Mr. Nell, because that Zamboni was new when I moved here, and I keep thinking it's a new Zamboni, but it's 20 years old.
Yeah, I don't know if it's,
It's,
would it
There's
be
another
that?
one than that.
Is
There's
there?
Yeah.
2008 rings a bell for me.
Oh, yeah.
14 years old.
No, and it's done well, but I give staff credit and I give our council credit that every year we send it away and get it checked out and refurbished and brought up to speed. So we just put a new motor in it last year, I think. So, but yeah, they have a lifespan and we're pushing, getting towards the upper end of that lifespan, no doubt.
Said it wasn't that long
Yeah.
ago, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
ago.
So any questions on here? I know it was probably hard for you to even get through any of it, but they do
It's a
go
good
through it. They've got lots of good pictures. I know Counselor Campion and I had a question about the golf course. So from my perspective right now, that information will go back to the golf course board. Whatever's in here on the golf course, and if how they want to move forward or use any of it, that would be up to them. That's not a facility we operate, so. And they've got the comments from the user groups and everything in there, so there's a lot there, but I was pleased with some of them. I was pleased with the Hannah Seals. We love this facility. It's perfect. It's great.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
that's nice.
most of our groups were pretty good in their comments. You know, even the rodeo group who responded on behalf of the rodeo, I appreciated that. They said, yeah, we're just trying to fit into here. So we're not a main user, so we're happy with the way it is. And we can't, you know, we don't feel right justifying a bunch of changes for us only for our event. So read through it. If there's any questions ever, don't hesitate to ask. But I thought there was nothing here that surprised me that, oh my God, this is something we need to deal with right away. So
I don't know if this is the time or place to say it, but the triplex there, I would like to see it named in memory of John Henry. Because John was such a ball guy, and boy, that was his baby up there. You know,
yeah, I've talked with a couple of John's close friends a little bit about what we can do. I know they were looking at something small like a bench and a memorial bench and where we could locate it, those types of things. Certainly if it's something that council wishes to move forward and name that, I would want to have, I don't think there'd be any issues, but certainly you'd want the family to be on board. And I think it's a great idea. The tough part with naming things after people is you can offend people.
Other people.
And then, you know, once you've given that facility a name, it's named. And I think that's why many years ago, when Kevin Sheehan was killed, he was an avid baseball player. They named a diamond after him, not and that's how we've done, but we don't have any more new diamonds, so if somebody came along and we wanted to recognize them that way, you kind of, once you name something, it's there for eternity, so. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
See, then in a case like that, that's where I think that you can put a bench in or whatever, but
Yeah,
I think for John, for what he did, because he took care of that diamond for years.
yeah, no, he was
diamonds
passionate in a lot of areas, and I know talking with him, that wasn't, his closest friends, that wasn't where they thought they would want to have a bench, to be honest with you,
Really,
because there's not as much traffic at the triplex. They felt, somewhere around the arena, front of the arena, where there's hundreds of people every day going in and out would be,
The smoking
Yeah.
bench in front of the
Well,
arena would be the prime spot.
That sure
Because
seems
he used
funny
it
to
as much
me.
as anyone did.
yeah. So, Council Campion, I can talk with Mrs. Henry and see what her thoughts are, and
well, I would, yeah. I'd
But
like to see
ultimately-
that.
to name a facility that's town-owned, that would be a council resolution, so.
Because, I've walked through King Hunter Park and that, there's all kinds of benches in there, but
Yeah.
I think only once did I stop and actually look at the name tag on that bench.
Yeah, no, they've been
So-
they've actually been very popular, the benches, we've
Oh, the
sold a
bench
lot
is
of them,
popular,
and
but the name tags aren't.
they've worked well, so. So that's all I have with this one, Mr. Mayor, is, I know it's a lot of material, but nothing there was a real shock to me, so.
No, like I said, I cruised through it fairly quickly, of course, stopping on things that caught my eye, and there was nothing that jumped off the page as being way out.
No,
The tennis
well-
court's in really bad shape.
yeah,
The tennis court's
Yeah.
in really bad shape.
It's,
I think that's on
that
the
picture is not
agenda.
very flat.
It's better than it looks.
Yeah.
well, a little bit, but
Yeah. No, it's not good.
It's
Well,
not
if you have a crack, the ball just goes
Yeah.
wherever it wants to.
The other thing too, that I know they've addressed in here, which was a big thing, was pickleball. Lots of talk about pickleball. Our pickleball group to date has been excellent. They've been very satisfied playing at the outdoor rink in the summers and having access to a dressing room to change and do all of those good things. When we do the tennis courts, we're looking at having pickleball lines done on it as well. I know that's one of their concerns. There is just having access to washrooms and change rooms that they have at the arena. So, but pickleball is a big sport. Again, you talk sport tourism. If you have that facility, you bring a lot of people into town for tournaments, but it's a big dollar cost to get that tournament facility. So what was it, $7 million for an indoor pickleball center in here? So
I'll spend 3 on ambulances.
yeah, so it's here. It was something they looked at a little bit closer than others, just for the fact that pickleball's a booming sport and there's sport tourism opportunities there, so.
That being said, I know the golf course had spoke about putting some higher averages services in,
And even sewer,
and so that's what I'm saying, though, there's maybe an opportunity to put in a change room, shower, whatever, and tie it in with what the golf
Yeah.
course is doing.
Yeah.
And have for lack of a better term, a win-win.
Yeah.
Utilization from a pickleball standpoint, I've never ever played the game, but I have witnessed the activity, and it's very, the people that are involved very adamant with it. I mean, it's growing, and it continues to grow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I did the Red Deer River meeting the other morning, and Mr. Slim joined in. He was down in Mexico.
Arizona
Arizona, yeah, and he had just
got off.
finished his pickleball game that morning.
I'm
We have people.
As you go,
We
lined
have
up.
people in town who probably play on average 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Every day.
They conflict with the play school group.
Yeah.
Because the play school group.
We have
has set
people,
times to play.
we close the facility at 9 o'clock. But if you're a gold member or silver member, you have access. So we have pickleball players who play from 6:45 to 9. We lock the doors. They stay in and they play till 10:30, 11. Like they love that game. So
It's one of those.
So there's nothing. I just
I've never
wanted to bring this to your attention, and when you get a chance to review it, like I said, there was no big surprises, and I thought it was good information. So.
Okay, for information only, then council round table.
Did we vote on? We need to vote
Do we
on.
need to vote? Sorry,
Accept it for
all in
information.
favor? A motion, need a motion first.
Yeah.
Need a motion to accept
I'll make that
the
motion, Mr. Mayor.
Council Warwick.
The
All in
Hannah
favor?
Health Living Strategy.
Yeah, develop it. All in favor? Carried. Round table. Change it up. Counselor Kroll.
Got nothing to report.
Okay, nothing new and exciting going on?
No, nothing, other than been talking with Ken, you know, they got it. The ambulance and stuff, that's about it.
Counselor Murphy?
Nothing, thank you.
How are Council Murphy? Just a question. How are things going? Library recruitment.
There were several applicants during our last meeting, and the deadline is March 1st. So
Okay.
they're hoping for a few more.
Okay, and things are still going along smoothly.
As it was for this council meeting, the library board lacked many policies in place of any kind because they were so small, and Sandra kind of encouraged them. So now we got policies on everything, which is great because it protects any future financial liabilities that have happened in the past. That's how you fix it. So, but I'm excited by some of the people. So I think it's going to be good, a good group.
Counselor Captain?
I had Henry Kruger on the 15th. That was just to use this stuff. And then the 17th, that Red Deer River meeting was a Zoom. And 95% of that meeting was done in camera issue, which I will bring forward to you as soon as it's released. Very interesting. And that's about it.
Counselor Warwick?
A couple of things. I had a couple citizens' concerns this last week. One individual, a couple individuals were concerned about the farmer's market at the curling rink. The question posed to me, and I just said I would share it with you. I asked them if they would be interested in coming and presenting to council and asking those questions on their own accord. And they said they definitely would move forward on it. So their question or remark would the town like to get some revenue for the market or nothing at all? And that comment was based on the concern that the town wants to start charging regular rent, which I said I was not aware of.
So this is from the committee, like the market that's been operating at the current.
That is correct, yes. They had concern that some of their vendors would come so they could have exposure to this stuff, but they make very little sales. So an increase of their table rental would eliminate them from this process. So that is a concern of theirs.
Yeah, so just to address that, Councilor Warwick. So typically, I'm surprised not to bring it up. Typically, right around this time, we get a letter from the Farmers Market Committee asking them to book and provide and a rate.
Who operate under the society.
That
Yes,
is
that
correct,
one,
and
yeah.
that they made mention of that.
So, yeah, and typically what we've done, just so you know, because we have another market in town, that private one that operates, when they came to us, I think they've been in there 2 years, maybe 3 years. We basically gave them a discounted rate. I believe it was 1/3 of the
3
cost.
years ago.
We gave them a discount. My premise from administration was that was their first time in there. We'll give them a discount. We want to slowly move the bar to full recovery. That was my goal. We did bump it up, I think, the next year to a 25%. They still are getting subsidized, I guess. But the message to them has been we want to get to the full rate. And I guess they make the argument to council to say we can't go to the full rate because of these factors. Then council can consider leaving the discount where it is or increasing the discount. But usually they send a letter, and that kind of initiates and kicks off the discussion on rates. But we have provided them a discount every year that they've been in there. We've been trying to decrease the discount, but there still is a discount there.
Okay. Thank you. The other question that was pointed at me a few days ago was some citizens that were concerned that unvaxxed individuals within the town of Hannah will not be considered for job positions with the town of Hannah. And I said I did not, or was not aware that we had policies that, so.
We don't, and we have not.
Cross that bridge.
We have, and I'll be fully transparent, we have probably a third of our staff is not vaccinated. We've never
That's
made it
not a question
mandatory.
that's asked.
It's not a question. We don't put out in any of our materials that you have to be vaccinated to apply. We wouldn't, certainly that isn't in our thoughts. So where they got the message from, I don't know. We certainly haven't promoted that message. And you can go back to them and say that we probably have a third of our staff are not vaccinated, and we have not made any effort to push them to be vaccinated.
I'm not sure what it came from either. I had the call and said, I'll
Okay,
just
yeah.
present it as the concerns come in. That's all for citizens' concerns. In regards to my commitment to Meridian Futures, we have had quite a few phone conferences and online conferences based on decision-making and voting powers with stuff that they're going forward with in there. It's a pretty big position. The financial part of it's like working in a banking organization. It is amazing what this organization is doing. I'm actually made some comments that I don't think it's as well known as
No,
it should be.
you're right.
I think there should be more. And in our annual review, I did make that comment, and that was put into one of their questioning.
I think the fact, Councillor Warwick, one of the facts and reasons is location and where they're at. We're on the very western boundary of it, and Kindersley and Drumheller has a community futures office 45 minutes away. So
Yeah.
I think that's part of the challenge, is it's such a large area and we're at the far end. I agree, it does great work, and however we can increase the presence of them in our community and awareness of them in our community, we should strive to do that.
And I was just thinking, there was a comment made earlier about transparency and some of the stuff that happens in some of these committees that we sit on. I would say a great portion of what I deal with is stuff that I can't communicate out.
Yeah.
Like this last week, for example, I don't know how many hours of a phone call we had dealing with some loan approvals, some legal actions on defaulting and missed or delayed payments. And then we had to go back on a lot of that, and we had to make other motions subject to those. So there was lots of in-camera stuff that is going on an ongoing basis. We reviewed and prepared all our feedback on our operational plan 2022 to 23 and our budget planning as well. So that was another big process that we went through. I'm loving it. It's pretty intense, and it requires a significant amount of time.
And the engagement, you have to be listening. You can't even stop for
Are
a
so
second.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it is
Yeah,
a
isn't she?
most wonderful person to engage with ever. She's very proactive. She's in it. I did engage in the Speed of Trust, which was an online training that they offered, and it was very, very good. They had the Stephen Covey institution presented. It was an all day, and it was very engaging. It was all through video conference, but it was very, very well done. One other question I have, I had some things I'd like to share in a bit of confidence, and I was wondering about going into an in-camera session, and if that could be done during this information meeting.
Typically, Councillor Warwick, that should be part of the agenda. Like,
Okay, I just.
Can it wait till the March 8th meeting?
Sure, it's just, yeah.
Okay, And what, because typically once you approve the agenda, that's your order of business. So if there is something in closed session or you wanted something in closed session, that's the time to add it to closed session. So if it can wait, we can put that on our March 8th agenda in closed session. And I guess we would need some indication from you what it is, like whether it's legal, whether it's personnel, whether it's like, there's reasons only certain reasons we can go in camera, and it has to fit those reasons, so.
And to be honest with you, I can be completely transparent in regards to that. I have had the opportunity to be a part of the council meeting online, and from a bird's eye view, what I'm seeing going on here, I think I would like to address and make us aware of the conversations and some of the dialogue and some of the stuff that goes on at the meeting that I think is pertinent to us. Maybe just being a little bit more cognizant of our presence here to the public.
So did we deal with your question? Did we deal with your comment now, or you want to have further discussion?
No, I have specific details
Okay.
that I will address during those times, if
Okay,
that's okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have to share.
It's been pretty quiet for me as far as meetings go. I do have I guess a bit of a concern regarding air quality. The GFL, I've talked to Kim a few times and stuff. I know it had been an issue for some residents and had been brought up in Mr. Waldy's report regarding air quality, and just was wondering whether there would be any appetite for being proactive and having some air quality monitors around the area to kind of address the issue before it gets to be a big issue. And I guess that's all I wanted to say, whether or not we take the interest in being proactive on some concerns that were brought forward with some residents and Mr. Waldy's recommendations or his report. I know it is a environment issue and was not a requirement, but as a council, whether or not we want to ensure that our resident safety is being addressed or being monitored.
So you're looking at that, Councillor Bowden, as the town establishing air monitoring stations.
Well, to
At
have
our
the
cost.
discussion, having that discussion to see if it would be warranted. And perhaps finding out what a cost would be. But that, of course, would be based on what council, if they would deem it as a worthwhile venture to pursue some research on it. That's all. Thank you.
That's an Alberta environment issue.
Well, it's
They
also our
issued the
residents.
license for it.
It's
So
also a residence issue if there are some people being affected by it. So
Is that something we could go to GFL with as a concern,
Yeah,
ask them if they would do it?
well, I asked them what, I've talked to them. I haven't talked to them for a while. and
Brad's actually off right now.
I haven't seen or heard from him since before Christmas, so,
He's off for some personal reasons.
but
but
yeah,
at least to find out, whether it could be a part of GFL, whether or not, and if it isn't, which I think it should be part of their responsibility to ensure that our residents are looked after or being considered, given the issues that we have dealt with. I know it is part of Sheerness, the power plant they've got, and that's a whole different issue, but air quality, and I don't know that it would be out of the question to be more concerned about our residents and ensuring that what we are told is, we've got confirmation. So that's just.
so yeah, no, we can certainly have discussion around that. My clarity for council is that the facility is licensed by Alberta Environment. Alberta Environment put the conditions of their operations in their license and in their approvals, which did not require that to happen. We submitted, provided them with a development permit, then air monitoring stations were not part of that. So for us to try and force it on them might be a bit of a challenge. whether there's a partnership there with them might be an option, but we can certainly have that discussion. I need to follow up with them. I did follow up with them after Andrew's presentation, and I advised them to watch it and go through it, and I wanted to hear any feedback they'd have on it, and I haven't heard anything from them, and that was with Don Francis. So that was just before Christmas, and he was going on holidays, but now we're into almost late February, so I can follow up. I didn't know, I haven't reached out to Brad, so I'll reach out to Don and go from there, so.
Thank you.
Okay, from the mayor's standpoint, work with the business hub, handed out a couple of welcome to Hannah packages, got a haircut. The school has reached out to me. They have, I believe it's the grade sixes, have a part of their social studies is municipal government. And the one class has asked me to come and speak. And
So just so you know, Mr. Mayor, so in the past, I know we've had a changeover in teachers at that group. They used to come here. It was in this late spring, early summer. They would actually bring their classes here, and the mayor and I would meet with them and have generally spend an hour or so with each class. One class would come, would leave, and the next class would come. So
Okay.
if you're talking to them, certainly
Yeah.
we would make that available as well, in addition to your discussion, because we had, a bit of a semblance I would go through in terms of what the town does and what we operate and how we do it. And the mayor would put his 2 cents in, and then we would turn it over to the kids and basically say, what questions do you have? What do you think we should do? It was always really interesting. I think if you talk to the former mayor, he really enjoyed that time with
Yeah.
the kids, because you get a lot of unique perspectives and a lot of unique questions. And so we always enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
And so we certainly would make that available.
okay, I will bring that up as well. Yeah, like I said, I have an 11-year-old granddaughter who has been very vocal about skateboard parks.
Okay, yeah, I think Lori
We
has
would
a
also
comment.
provide each of them with a gift certificate for an
Yeah.
ice cream. cone
Okay,
at the
cool.
visitor Center, but I would need some lead time on that,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
now that we don't manage that, it's a little different, and we don't have, I have to work together.
But yeah, I know Mrs. Castor was always the one who reached out to me, Miss Castor, set it up, and I know she's retired, so
Yeah, it's 2 new teachers, so.
both are new, so
Don't call her Mrs.
I caught myself on the second one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you could, if you're in discussions with them,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, certainly say
Apparently there are 2 different levels or stages of their
curriculum.
curriculum. Thank you.
They used to come here, and we would certainly welcome them to come here if that worked with them, so.
Awesome. And that's all I have, other than just some regular complaints about dust and, yeah, the Facebook, I went and visited with my individual, and it went very well. So,
I was gonna ask you about that, so good.
he was quite.
Is it a secret or what?
There
I don't
was.
do Facebook.
Yeah, and that's fine. So basically what there was is there was a Facebook comment on the Hannah Rat and Rave about the town of Hannah needs to take down the mandate signs. And so I let it go for a few minutes, and then I commented that it's the town of Hannah's mandate to take the signs down. It's not our position to take the signs down. And then it kind of accelerated from there, and I said, it wouldn't be my call as the mayor to take them down, it would be our council's decision to take them down. And then there was a little bit of a, I don't know, discussion, for lack of a better word, about past councils and current councils, and I defended both. And then it just, yeah, I just finally put in that I would not be commenting anymore. So by morning, the
Comments were deleted.
comments were all deleted. And the following Saturday, I went and visited the individual. I knocked on his door and had a brief conversation with him about what had happened. And he explained to me that it wasn't his normal activity to do what he did, so. I think he was surprised that I would actually show up and visit with him. But this is the second time we've had an instance with him. The first one was about snow removal and how the town council and staff were exempt from snow removal rules. And I've actually asked him to provide addresses and names, and we could address it, and nothing was done.
I thought we got special treatment. Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah,
that's what I'm always,
I'm being told we're very special.
people don't realize there was a school across the street from my house.
So, but anyway, that was what that was all about. I think I addressed it about as well as I possibly could, and
We tried to call him out, he wouldn't come.
he wouldn't come again, so. But other than that, it's still good. And yeah,
The only question I would have for that is, if a comment is made about a specific counselor, they were deleted before other people saw them.
there was
No
nothing
specifics.
specific to anyone.
No, not that in particular, but would, Mr. Mayor, would you contact that counselor and say, you know, there's someone who's very concerned, you need to be aware of it? Because by the time I looked, all the comments were deleted. and I
Yeah,
thought, Did
no,
I do something wrong?
no, I would. And that's, I'm very open.
Yes,
Everyone
I
knows
know that. I
so.
appreciate that about you.
Same thing with the snow removal, when the council and staff get called out. I want to know if it's one of my counselors, I would contact the counselor. If it's one of Mr. Nill's staff, I would let Mr. Nill know,
And I went through the same thing in my mind with that comment, and I went, okay, that's staff sidewalk. I couldn't come up with any that, and of course, when the mayor pushed him on it, there was no response, so.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's, and I know we're going a little off topic here, but social media is an interesting one. You have to be careful commenting, because it's one of those things, even though you might be commenting as Sandra Murphy, you don't get rid of your counselor Sandra Murphy hat. And
Never.
I think the existing council will know that Councillor Olson has been challenged
Yes, that's right.
on a couple of occasions about stuff that he has responded to on Facebook. And I think Councillor Olson was in the right, and council agreed that he had not committed a conduct violation. But in that individual's mind, he had. But council has basically cleared Councillor Olson, said he did not say anything that was violated the code of conduct, but you just have to be careful.
It's the
And
process.
it's not necessarily fair, and I agree with that. It's not necessarily fair that Danny cannot be Danny. He's always, now people will see him as the mayor.
trust me,
And,
there's a lot of wordsmithing goes on when I
Yes.
comment to something.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, you did.
And no, and
The
even
comments
if,
were,
and even if you
Perfect.
say,
Yeah.
I am responding as Danny
You're
Pavischuk,
still
not
the
mayor, you can't remove that hat. And that's one of the things of being on council is you can't remove that hat. And I've always taken that role from a staff perspective as well. I can't remove my position in the community, and I've always been very cognizant of it, where I'm out at social events or doing things, that I'm going to act in a proper professional manner, because if I don't, people will see me and then they'll reflect on me as an administrator in that role, and you lose some credibility and you lose some
It's a
respect.
magical thing. Like,
It is.
it's- And try to explain that to staff, that although you're not at work,
Yeah,
you still represent the town of Hanover,
Yeah.
Pine Ridge Supply, or
Yeah.
Warwick Somard, where our venture
or
applications.
their spouses.
Well,
yeah. That even
everyone,
gets,
and
that even.
and it's, maybe it's not fair, but
No,
that's
but
the
it's-
reality of
But it
it.
happens all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
So no, that's good, Mr. Mayor, that you did. I was gonna ask you about if
Yeah.
anything had transpired, so
fired.
good for you.
Hearing nothing else, adjournment, And I've got to go welcome 4 new businesses in Hannah.
Excellent.
I
It's
used to do that job.
It's actually really fun.
Yeah.
That